Hey, hello, and welcome, fellow metallurgists, to another episode of Heavy Metallurgy. Number 96, as a matter of fact. 100 is coming quick, and very quick. Yeah, today's topic, we are talking about escapism in music. And as you peer into the void, what sort of music is taking you in that direction? I know Alan and I have got a pile of stuff to show, and we have a special guest this week. Hang out with us, and we'll get right to it. Hey, all right. That was not as well executed as it should have been. But anyway, welcome, everybody. Alan, it's great to see you. Jimmy, our guest from the channel Future Ruins, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. This should be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. It's great to finally have you aboard. It's been a while since I've gotten to talk to you. Everything been going well?
Yeah, going good. Just, new year, trying to kind of step the channel up a bit and just kind of get a little bit more involved here and there. And just looking forward to hopefully a fruitful, YouTube season. Third year going into it for me. So, it's kind of time to kind of step it up a bit. You know what I mean? So, it's been really good. Yeah, a lot of good music coming out and a lot of cool things to talk about. So.
And for those of you that aren't aware of Future Ruins, it is a YouTube channel that it's a metal focused channel, but Jimmy does things a little bit differently. Him and a small group of other metal YouTubers are avid hikers, and his channel is very much documents his travels into the Colorado mountain ranges and surrounding areas. What gave you the idea for a channel such as this?
Yeah, well, I started my channel about 2 years ago, kind of right before the pandemic, and I love watching videos from the community, and figured I'd just give it a shot, give it a try. And I did a few collection style videos. I'm a collector, in terms of vinyl, cassettes, CD. I do all the formats, and that was a lot of fun. But I just kind of quickly realized that how do I do something a little bit more that maybe I'd be better at? There's way better channels out there to watch for that sort of, collection update style stuff. So, still do videos like that every now and then. But the hiking videos, I kind of started on a whim. I thought, maybe it would just offer me to allow me to offer something a little different. I'm an experienced hiker, backpacker, mountaineer, and music is a big part of my enjoyment of the hobby. And I guess I'm just trying to make videos that I'd like to watch, I'd like to watch myself and just be creative with it. I keep a firm footing in both communities, the metal and hiking. And it's a bit niche, but I've always felt the two have a lot to do with each other. With outdoor recreation comes a huge sense of independence and individualism, solitude. And I find that these qualities similarly translate to being a metalhead, individualism, escape from the mainstream. I film everything by myself, everything from day hikes or mountain peaks, going out in the backcountry alone for an overnight stay. And through that, I try to add some of the music that I like in it as well, and try to sort of coalesce the two. I try to structure the video in a way that the viewer is kind of along for the ride with me. And it's not, easy by any means, but I enjoy the challenge. I'm getting better at it every time. So I'm just going to continue doing it and just make the most engaging videos that I can.
It's funny you mentioned isolation. I watch your videos, and I try to imagine myself doing something that ambitious and potentially dangerous, let's be honest, on my own. It's just, I think it takes a special kind of person that just wants to wander into the woods by themselves and maybe telling the significant other, yeah, I'm going here. So if you don't see me for a couple days, send out the cavalry. But I always saw hiking as kind of a community thing. A couple friends go take a walk and talk and BS. And is it a mindset, or I know you have a computer-based job, so I'm sure escaping technology is at the forefront of your thoughts when you're out there wandering around?
Well, it's that too. And I mean, when I'm not shooting videos, I typically hike with my wife a lot. I've got a group of friends that I do hiking with, especially when it comes to doing more like technical kind of stuff like peaks and things like that. I've got guys that, I've done a lot of that kind of stuff with. But even when you're with other people, that mindset still stays the same. Like even if you're with somebody, you still can get through it. And sometimes things get quiet and you kind of just get into your own world when you're doing it, especially when it comes to doing like long form kind of things, like full days, talking, 8 to 12 miles or whatever it is. You get into this sort of mindset that the time just kind of stops, and before you know it, the day is over and it's like, God, I can't believe it's been 8 hours. Like you just lose sense of it. But I think it's definitely a mindset. And for me, it's definitely, like you said, I work on a computer, 50 hours a week and have done so for 18 years. And, I don't hate my job or anything, but I need some sort of escape like we're going to be talking about tonight. And that's kind of a big part of it. But I also know what it does for my mental and physical health. And, it's kind of like my church in a lot of ways. And I need it. And if I don't get it, it's kind of like I'm not getting my drug in a way, but yeah, it's just, and I'm fortunate to live in a place where I've got a lot of really cool places that I can explore doing that. And I didn't start going out by myself, in the middle of the backcountry overnight, quickly. I kind of worked myself up to that. And there's still some places that I kind of don't really like to go by myself. But I found my areas and I found where I feel comfortable, and I take precautions when it comes to going out. I have a spot, I can use a GPS signal to let my wife know where I'm at. And, if I run into trouble, I can put in a call to search and rescue. So, I always, make sure I know where I am and study the area, know the geography, know the trail well, be able to kind of have a sense of direction. And in that process, I've not had any issues for the most part, getting lost or anything like that. I've been pretty fortunate, but it's all about making sure that you know what you're getting yourself into.
Right on. And there was a question Alan just had up.
Oh yes, Samantha was wondering if you'd ever been up hiking like around the Michigan area where she's at.
I have not, and I would love to come up there and check that area out. I mean, most of my experiences in the West, in Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, California. I've done a little bit of hiking on the East Coast, but I mean, I'm from New Orleans. I moved up to Colorado when I was 25. So I've only been really doing it for 10 years now. So it's really kind of been focused in this area here. But I mean, there's so many places to do it. It's not just the West. It's not just about mountains. It's about natural places. That's what matters. It's not about difficulty. It's all about the mindset and getting, out of your own head and just, sort of finding that sort of communion with nature. I find is the way I like to explain it the best is what I find the most fulfilling.
Mark is asking any terrifying encounters with wild animals, and I will add in a question from earlier, Bigfoot too.
Yeah, I mean, I've pretty much seen every animal you can think of. Luckily, in Colorado, we don't have grizzly bears. We have bears. There may be, but as far as we know, there are no grizzly bears here. The black bears are really not much of a concern. They stay away from the trails. I'm usually on dedicated hiking trails. I have encountered mountain lions twice. One was a very big one actually, but he was a ways away, and it happened very, very quickly. I saw him run down sort of a hill, and it happened so fast. He was about 20-30 yards away from me, and luckily he was running the other direction, so it did not pose a threat to me. I do carry bear spray and a buck knife just for protection, but I've never had any issues. And it's the more I do it, the more I realize that, things like that you're more than likely to go walk outside in the street and get hit by a car than have, an issue like that. If I was hiking in grizzly country, it's a different ball game for sure, which I don't have a ton of experience with, but that game is all about, strength and numbers, because a grizzly bear is a whole different beast, and you do not want to surprise one of those. And it does happen in Wyoming quite a bit. So as far as Bigfoot goes, I'm rooting for the guy. I don't know. I'm used to, I'd lie to you. I'd be lying to you if I told you it wasn't something I was, interested in. Any outdoorsman would be lying to you if they were, or just kind of crazy if it wasn't a topic they found fun and interesting. But I've had some things happen that I don't know what it was, but it's one of those things that I'm open-minded. I'm open-minded to things that we don't know about or can't explain. And nope, I've never seen one, but I'm, like I said, I'm rooting for the guy. I hope he's out there.
Hard to say. So hard to say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Jimmy came to us with this idea, escapism in metal, and it's a great topic idea, and glad to finally have him on. Absolutely psyched. And we were doing so much farting around, swapping the intro around. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming, and hello to Alan, hello to Jimmy, and anybody. We've got super chats are enacted. If anybody wants to help support the channel, that is one way to do so. Also, there are about 25 to 35% of people that are not subscribed that are watching, so that's another way to support the channel. Subscribe helps us out a bunch. Alan, do you have anything to add? I've just kind of been rushing headlong into this episode. I'm so sorry.
Nope, you're doing fine. All I'll say is Marty's just pushing the subs because he wants to get to 5,000 so he can make me live stream listening to the entire Chameleon album by Helloween, because he knows I'll basically have to end by putting my head in a blender.
And I'd start for that. That's for sure.
Oh, I'll be there to hold your hand. I'll keep your head out of the blender. You might come out surprised how much you enjoyed it. But,
no.
Yeah. Well, we're almost to 4,000, so 5,000 isn't too far away, and
it's starting to creep up.
It's creeping
Shit's
up
getting
fast.
real.
But again, thank you everybody. We really appreciate you, and it's good to see everybody. It's always good to hit Friday, and we're going to get started. First of all, Jimmy, what made you think about this topic? What was brought to the table?
Yeah, well, I've been watching your guys' show, and I just thought if I ever came on, I had to come up with something that would be a little different and new. And I thought that the idea would be good for this. You guys cover a lot of ground when it comes to metal and just music in general. And I think that for me, escapism is one of many major elements that I love about metal music and just music in general. Is that we already talked about I do with hiking. Well, it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of something to take you out of your head, and sometimes like I need music you want music to move you and make you feel things, right? And whether that's just you want to just bang your head to something really heavy, or you want something to really just transport you to another dimension, or whatever it is. Especially I find with especially black metal, but there's a lot of metal and just music in general that I think has that effect on us as the listener. And I mean, one of the other thing about metal is that, look, we love the cover arts, and there's a big element of escapism when it comes to great cover arts in metal. And I think that that's a big part of the pull for us. It's not just the music. It's about what's it about? What is it? What is it talking about? Whether it's fantasy, or whether it's nature, or whether it's deep history or mystery. I've actually got all my albums I'm going to talk about tonight sort of categorized in these things, but it's no different than finding a great movie to watch, or just something to take you out of the everyday rigmarole of life. Whatever it is that it is for you, whether it's your job, or dealing with your kids, or just having to just interact with the rest of the rat race on the concrete. We need something to kind of elevate us away from that at times, to be healthy mentally. And I think there's a lot of stuff, again, that we could easily, there's tons of things that I could pull from my collection that do that for me. So yeah, I thought it would be a cool topic to discuss with you guys.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure we all have a bunch to show, so we're going to start off with you. Pick one and talk about it, and we'll go around the room.
My first pick was something I really wanted to highlight on this show, because this is kind of sort of an unknown, but this is a very near and dear album for me. And since it came out in 2010, and it's something that I take a lot of just, very definition of escapism. And this is a band called Humanoid with Remembering Universe. And yeah, this came out in 2010, and the mastermind behind the album is a guitar player named Matthew Marcotte. He is the lead guitarist for a technical death metal band from Canada called Augury. And Augury has been around since, I think, the late 90s. Great progressive tech death metal band. And this is sort of his instrumental project. And this was the first one that came out, like I said, 2010. And the best way I could describe this is it's very focused around guitar. And if you were to ask me what is the music of the spheres, this album would be it. And what do we want out of music that's, cosmic or spacey? Obviously it's going to have some sort of futuristic kind of sound to it. When it comes to guitars, this is kind of an array of guitar sounds. There's guitar synth, there's classical acoustic guitars. There's two bassists that play on this. One of the bassists, Dominic Lapointe, I think he plays in Cryptopsy. And then there's Kaoth, the six-string bassist, who played in a band called Unexpect, who is no longer around, but was a really crazy avant-garde kind of prog death metal band from Canada as well. But the best way I could describe this, I mean, this is the perfect record to, if you're able to get to a place where you don't have any natural lights to get in the way of your viewing of the night sky, and just gaze at the stars. I mean, this is the album to accompany you with that. And it's just the way it starts off is just like these crazy, the sounds of the first track, it just draws you in, and it sounds like just cosmic, like stars colliding. And when it gets going, it's like the music it's very melodic. It's very just maybe progressive, but I would say that if you are into Nachachwan, if you're into Aaron Carey and his guitar style, this guy Matthew is he doesn't really sound like Aaron, but I think that he has a similar. He's obviously classically trained as a guitar player. He's got a very intricate style in the way that he plays, and the sort of chord progressions and the different scales that he uses. It's very beautiful. It's very cosmic sounding, and it kind of is an outer body experience to me. And the artwork is really cool too. And Away from Voivod did some of the interior artwork. You can see it's kind of trademark Away.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Stuff. But it's a little hard to describe, but I highly recommend if you're into just that sort of progressive, guitar driven music. There's a lot of other instruments going on too, but I highly recommend you seek this out. You can actually still get the CD on Amazon, but easy to find on Bandcamp. He put a follow-up out a couple of years after this. It's not as nearly as good. It's a lot more kind of like avant-garde, but man, this one has stuck with me for such a long time. It's really, really awesome. Highly recommend you guys check these guys out.
All right. Pulled one right out of the bat I've never heard of.
Me either. That's a completely new one.
How about you, Alan? Where did you start off on this?
Oh, let's see. We were covering, the topic was escape. So I picked Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy. Because I figured there's a couple of, actually, this was a joke, but also not a joke. As I was thinking about it, looking through the racks on what kind of stuff to pull, I thought, escapism, there's a couple of different sort of angles to that. And, one of them is simply bands that do very good storytelling, where you can, get into the songs, they describe characters, and you start kind of immediately thinking, about this person, what they're doing, where they're at, where does their story go after the song ends, or where did it begin before the song started? Thin Lizzy was always really good at that. For 70s hard rock, they were one of the best at just telling these urban stories, of all these characters that are sort of working the back streets, down on their luck, a little bit shady, a little bit dealing under the table kind of things. But they also give them, a real majesty. They, make them into these, tragic, heroic figures, even though they're just, drunks and gamblers and, stuff like that. Phil Lynnett's voice was always perfect for conveying these, tales of backstreet Romeos and, wayward urban vagabonds. And so, yeah, that's, one thing, for escaping, just getting drawn into the story and wanting to know, what happens, next after, Johnny the Fox, and characters, do their things. So I figured it was a fun way to start, given the title of the album, but also they really do a good job of drawing you in with the storytelling aspect of escapism. That's, a great way to just kind of tune out the real world for a while and focus on, these fictional characters that are just, even though these songs are, short and straightforward, the characters are well developed enough and they're sung about emotionally by Philip to the point that you kind of get lost in, what their stories are and what their stories might have been if they had caught a break somewhere along the line, but they never do in Thin Lizzy songs. So that's my first pick. Marty, what are you starting us off with?
Awesome. Well, I processed this topic idea with, I'm not a big lyrics guy, but atmosphere and the way music makes me feel is where I tend to notice the most world building or escape. And the first band that came to mind instantly is Summoning. These two albums in particular. Well, I mean this one too. It's a little dry in the production, but the atmosphere, this is world building music, and it instantly, it's cheesy to say this, but it's Lord of the Rings is the subject material this music is built upon. And listening to these albums is kind of the same feeling I got when I was reading the books multiple times. There's always this feeling you get thrown into this world and you're kind of along with the characters for the ride. And the way Tolkien could describe, and Summoning does the exact same thing with their music. It's very descriptive music. It's just so atmospheric and so well written. This album in particular is my favorite by them. The very last song, A Distant Flame Before the Sun. Oh my God. Absolutely scathing vocals. So good. Absolutely fantastic. All their stuff is good other than the debut and maybe the very last album they've done. It didn't click with me that well, but all the rest of them have, it always hits me between the eyes every time. And I'm off my head. I'm traveling the astral plane, whatever it is. The music is kind of the guide, and I am leaving the body behind and just traveling along the sonic caravan, I guess I should say. But it's amazing music, world building, absolutely stunning escapism for me.
Yep. Excellent choice.
Yeah, if you're a metal fan and a Tolkien fan and you don't like Summoning, you're definitely doing it wrong.
There's something wrong, yeah.
It would be hard not to be a Summoning fan if you're into both of those things. It's possible if you're, an alien or communist or a communist alien or something. I don't know. A cannibal, maybe a communist alien cannibal.
I always wonder what the movies would have been like if they'd have thrown in a Summoning song, like in the credits or something.
It would fit really well. To their credit, most of the music they picked fit really well too. So
sure.
Yeah.
Isn't this the album they had a song that was all in Orc? Wait, maybe it was this one.
It's one of the newer albums,
which I thought was pretty damn cool that they took the time to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with Summoning. They really take their time with the source material. It's not just, two-dimensional hobbit, sword, dragon, la, 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 rinse, repeat the chorus. I mean, the one, I'd pulled, this one and, one of the songs is all about, one of the characters from the Second Age of Man, which until a few months ago, very few people knew much about. You really had to dig into the old source material to find out the history of Numenor and stuff. So yeah, and that's the kind of stuff they do on a regular basis. They get the obscure characters and the lost and forgotten tales and build them up, and it's all letter perfect. With what's canonical and what's even just drafts and rough drafts out of Tolkien's library. So yeah, they do it right for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they never compromise their sound either. They've always maintained what they do, and it's they definitely developed over albums, but since then, the last one, it still has some good stuff on it. It wasn't quite as good as previous stuff, but I'm hoping that they release a new one soon. That would be amazing.
It's about time for them to, it feels like, yeah.
All right, Jimmy, what's your next one?
Let's see. So, I've got another, well, the last one wasn't quite death metal, but this is death metal. So this band is from the UK. This is their more recent album. This is Mithras with On Strange Loops. And Mithras is a sort of just highly brutal technical death metal band. They've been around. They've done 4 or 5 records. The first one, probably late 90s, early 2000s. But what I would say about Mithras is before there was this whole like cosmic death metal explosion with your blood incantations and your cosmic putrefactions and all these things. There's lots of bands that I think Mithras was kind of before all that. I think they were kind of doing the cosmic death metal thing. I don't want to say first, but definitely this is, predates a lot of the more, current trend and going down that sort of sound. And even at that, Mithras kind of sounds quite different than the current crop of cosmic death metal. And so the best way I could describe him is kind of just like maybe sort of more in the style of Nile. It's very shreddy, very. You do have to kind of get past the drums a little bit because they're pretty heavily quantized. But I think that's kind of done on purpose to kind of give the whole spacey effect. The first record they did in this style was one called Worlds Beyond the Veil, and then they released another one, and then this one came out in 2015. I think this is probably their finest moment. And it's just, they really, like the lead guitarist for this, Leon Macy, he just has a really amazing style in terms of making the guitar solos, and a lot of the effects to the songs sound very, very spacey and cosmic, and very varied. There's songs that have more like interlude kind of synth, I don't know if they're like guitar synths, things like this, but excellent cosmic death metal. That's really another example of a band that just transports you to the cosmos when you listen to them. And highly recommended, man. Great band. And he's had a hard time keeping this band together because he's always having trouble finding new members to actually do it as a touring band. But if you are into these guys, he started posting some live videos on their YouTube channel. He found a new drummer, and the new drummer is freaking fantastic and can handle this stuff because the drumming is extreme metal drumming. Just lightning fast, double bass and blast beats. But very dynamic, very melodic, and just another world building kind of record. Mithras.
All right.
I've heard just a little bit of their stuff, and yeah, it sounds pretty interesting. I just never have followed up on them. There's one that's just like, that's cool, let's keep it in mind, and I will circle back to it sooner than later, and now it'll be sooner.
All right, Alan.
Okay, my first pick, was Jailbreak, so my second pick was also Jailbreak. It's an escape. What can I say? I started from a different entry point into this labyrinth. Okay, but no, this one again, there was a reason besides just having a bit of a meme with it. And Samantha pointed this out in the comments a little bit earlier. There are certain albums that when you hear them, it immediately takes you back to like your teenage years, and you can remember a ton of detail, really little, very minor things in the grand scope of the universe. But yeah, with the right album, you're immediately back, however many years it is, you're transported there immediately. And, older, early AC/DC stuff for me, that I am immediately sitting on a bus on a Saturday morning in the fall, riding to some, high school band competition, with a bunch of, nice redneck guys, in the back of the bus, with a little, battery powered, boombox, blasting out some Bon Scott era AC/DC album and just having the time of our life, even though we didn't necessarily know it or appreciate it at the time. So yeah, these kind of, albums, musically, I don't think you would describe AC/DC, in the same way as, Mithras or Summoning or these other bands that we're starting to talk about. But for everyone has those albums where they can just put it on and escape, right back, to those formative years of hanging out with their friends, whether it was driving around at night or, parking somewhere, wherever, the kids could go to, get away from prying eyes of, adults. Yeah, that's another version of escapism. And early AC/DC stuff, in particular, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap is the one in particular that always takes me back to those band trips from high school. But this one had Jailbreak in the name, so I pulled this instead because escape. Why not?
Well, another thing about that is it takes you, even escapism, it takes you back to, you remember when you first heard that record, when you were younger, it puts you back into that time when nothing, you didn't give a shit about anything, and you could just,
Yeah, and you knew these albums inside and out. I mean, you played them and replayed them, for weeks at a time. You knew every little note, every song, everything. It's very different from the experience we usually have with music nowadays. Let's face it, most of the albums we get, we buy them, we play them a handful of times, we put them on a shelf. 2 years later, we look at the shelf and like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? Where did that come from? Oh yeah, I forgot I had that. But these albums, they are etched into our memory. They were an important part of those formative years for us. So yeah, having that connection to go back and just remember those good times. That's an important thing, I think, for a lot of people.
Sure.
All right, Marty.
All
now
right.
you do it right and show us something else with an elf or an orc on it.
Well, I hate to give this guy any love, but man, there's no denying the
I think I know what it is.
the escapism that his music creates. And
Weird Al Yankovic, I know. It's a love-hate relationship.
Your Weird Al's Dare to Be Stupid takes me there. But this is the first Burzum album I ever bought, and obviously the digipack is completely wrecked. Detsum and Gangvar, and yeah, he's got a very atmospheric, getting lost in the woods at night kind of feel. But two songs in particular on here: number 5, Handsome Rista, and Nar Himmenlen Klarner. They are the two instrumentals. One is synth, the other one is guitar. Man, those two songs, they're back to back too. Those two songs hit on this album, and it's just, my brain goes into the cosmos. It's just hypnotic, simplistic. I really love the guitar production of it. I love how he could create songs simplistic, but still carried a lot of weight. They carry a lot of weight. And after, you go through the first half of the album, which is pretty heavy, unrelenting black metal with a crying orc singing. By the time you hit those two instrumental tracks, it's time to check out of your subconscious for a while. And this was my first Burzum record, and I still pull it out every once in a while and listen. I very fondly listen to this stuff. It's just, I love the Pitten production. I just love this whole era of black metal. Awesome. Takes me away every time.
Yeah, I would put Philosophum in that category as well.
Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, Havis Lasset Taros as well. The first
That's
one,
the one I pick. Yeah.
Yeah. The first one was a little too, young, juvenile, Bathory.
Rough, yeah.
It's a rough album, but the Aska EP and, all this other stuff is just, wow. It's amazing. A guy that's such a doofus could write such great music. But anyway, Jimmy.
Well, it came up in the comments here a couple times from Metal Theologian and I think a couple other folks. So are you guys familiar with the Dyatlov Pass incident?
I just watched recently a documentary on that. Very, very strange. Very strange.
Oh yeah, the one in Russia.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got a book on that I read a few years ago. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Is it real or is it folklore?
They actually had some new studies published about a year ago that they think they really do have a good explanation for it now. But I'll let Jimmy go through it before I do any spoilers.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like they're getting, I mean, for the longest time, it's been this sort of major mystery. In the 50s, for those that don't know about it, a group of 9 Russian hikers went trekking up in the Ural Mountains in Russia, and in the dead of winter. And I think they were trying to like get some sort of certification, like they're pretty heavily experienced in mountain rescue or something like that. And so they went into some pretty extreme conditions way high up in the mountain to stay overnight. And they got caught in a blizzard. And, long story short, they all died. And when they found their remains, there was a lot of really weird, mysterious things that they found, that they had cut a hole into their tent to get out. And they ended up in various places. I mean, it was pretty clear that a few of them died of hypothermia. We're talking like sub-zero temperatures, and there was evidence to show that they were out of their tent without any warm clothes on, that they had just in socks, and really, really crazy thing to do if you were in a bad situation. But what made it really especially just creepy is 3 or 4 of the bodies were found heavily mutilated. Their eyes were gouged out. One of them's tongues was ripped out, and they don't, to this day, they don't really know exactly how these people died. But it's an interesting story, and I find it kind of it's a little weird for me to choose this record as escapism, because this is based off of this incident, and but at the same time, there's something sort of escapist about just kind of imagining, doing something that you truly love and dying from it. And I think that is what this band addresses. So this band is a Russian band called Kawan, and this album is a concept album, and it is all about the Dyatlov Pass incident. And the band leader, he's sort of a historian himself. And not long ago, when they had done, they did a live album of this, and on his Instagram, he would post pictures that they had retrieved from the event. And one of the pictures, interestingly, they were asking him what he thought happened, and he believes that they were murdered, but he didn't really expand upon that. And there's a lot of theories out there. Just go look it up on Wikipedia. You'll find all about it. But to the music, to the record, this music is very escapist to me, and it's an absolutely beautiful piece of music. And Kawan, they're not really a metal band. They're but they do sort of exist in the metal realm. Some of their older stuff, the music is kind of a mix of like doom metal meets post rock with like progressive and just very ethereal melodic tendencies. They have a violinist. There's a female vocalist. I mean, and maybe you could take like Later Day Anathema and mix that with just like doom metal post rock. That's the way I can describe it. But this music is this record is a journey from start to finish. It's 7 individual songs, but it feels like one piece of music. It builds up and comes down, and it's a very, very highly emotional listen. The music, and if you understand anything about the story, if you follow the trajectory of when these guys left to go into their trek until they were found dead, I feel like the music really it just covers the whole journey in a way. Like in the middle towards it, when they die, it gets really heavy, and there's some black metal style vocals, but it's mostly like clean vocals. And I mean, I think that these guys have a sort of niche, being a Russian band. I think they actually live in Estonia now. But this is an amazing record, absolutely captivating and beautiful, and sad, very, very sad, and heavy, and just pushes all the buttons emotionally. And they actually put up a new one just last year called Ice Fleet, which also follows a similar story in Russia, just where they found these ships that were buried below the ice, and another crazy story that he found and was able to kind of base a record upon. Another absolutely amazing listen. But if you're going to try Kawan out, I would start with, this is called Sorny Nye. And highly recommended, man. Just completely will, take you to as if you were there, and experience this very sad and very bizarre event. So.
All right, Alan, you heard some info on? They've speculated.
Yeah, I've actually read about that a lot. I've seen. I'm not sure if it was that album, Jimmy, or another band that used, kind of the same concept for an album a few years ago. But yeah, they have the same cover as that picture of them all on the, cross country skis, and just kind of
that's actually
fading off into the snow. It's a really haunting image. I've seen, some people have manipulated it a few ways, and it makes for a really good cover.
Yeah.
But there was a weird story. There were, like Jimmy said, some of the bodies had, weird injuries. Some of them had a lot of internal injuries, but no external injuries, which led to a lot of the different kind of, theories about, how did they end up with multiple bones broken, but the skin's perfectly intact? They weren't lacerated. There wasn't bruising, but they had like multiple fractures throughout like their rib cages. There were also trace amounts of radiation found with some of the bodies, which led, of course, to tons of theories that, maybe they had been, they were hiking on a different route than they originally planned to. And so some folks thought they might have, basically like wandered into a test fire zone, and they got, hit with some kind of, Russian weapon because they hiked into the wrong area where
they had to change their trajectory because the weather turned so bad, right?
The weather was bad, and they decided to go up like a different mountain instead of the one they were originally going to target. Anyway, within just the past year or two, and actually geologists have worked on it. They think what actually has happened is there's a particular type of landslide event that will happen on ice-covered slopes. And there's a technical name for it. It's like shelf displacement or something. And what will happen is if you have, and the way they had dug out their campsite and stuff made perfect sense, where they had kind of, tried to, dig in a little bit and shelter up against the mountain. But in doing so, they set it up right against, what was essentially like a large block of snow. And if you have a little bit of melting occur there, that whole thing can shift and then just plop down. And that fits a lot of the evidence that they see, both from the way the site, the tents and stuff were kind of crushed. It would explain a lot of the injuries that they had in terms of how people got, like all these internal fractures, because just having this, massive block of ice essentially crush them. It wouldn't tear up, the skin or anything like that, but it would fracture a lot of bones. And it would also explain what Jimmy was saying about them having, just immediately like cutting their way out of the tents and fleeing off in every direction. These were experienced hikers. They know it's, sub-zero freezing. They have little chance of surviving outside. So whatever drove them out of that tent was worse than their odds of surviving in the middle of the night in a blizzard in the middle of nowhere. But hearing, the cracking and pop, of this big, block of ice starting to descend on them, that's one of the things that, yes, would cause you to get out of that tent no matter what, because you have almost no chance of surviving if you get completely flattened by that. So that seems to be, the best theory that's been come up with in recent years that fits all the evidence that they, have from the site. Yeah,
wasn't there weird stuff like they were found naked and their clothes were up in a tree and all this weird?
Some of them were, partially dressed, not dressed, which again, if they were, they would have already been, in for the night. So, I mean, it makes sense that, they, they wouldn't be, sleeping in, in full hiking gear or anything like that, which again, just harkens to the fact that they had to get out of there immediately. They didn't have time to stop and put on boots or anything. I mean, if an avalanche is heading your way, you're not gonna be like, hold on, let me tie my shoelaces.
Right.
Okay, I'm ready to go now. Oh wait, hold on, I need to grab a warmer coat.
You're just hauling ass. Mm-hmm.
You're just you flee for your life, and it's the old thing of when you are your building's on fire and you get stuck on the roof, you just go ahead and jump off, because that at least buys you another 5 seconds to figure out what to do next. They're cutting their way out of that tent and fleeing into a freezing cold dark night, because that buys them a little time for a miracle to figure out what to do next. If they stay where they're put, they're dead instantly. So,
and it's funny because there is someone mentioned Bigfoot on here too. I was watching a documentary way earlier than recently, and apparently they were going through their camera, like a little video clip of something that looked like Bigfoot in the woods. They're like, what is that? What is that type crap? So I'm all in. That's what sold me on the story, by the way.
They had been keeping like, a kind of a journal, but they were doing it like, kind of like, like a fake newspaper headlines, just kind of, documenting, their trek, the different, towns and stuff they had stopped at. Because they had rode, different trains, to get out into that part. And they had made up some goofy stories about like, oh, day 33, spotted Yeti today, traded, food canisters with it or something. But some people, yes, took those, Yeti reports, from this obviously, very, just for fun kind of journal they were keeping as quote unquote proof that people, that was their thing, that Yetis had attacked the camp and, way into the tents and, massacred everyone. It's just like, I don't think there was much to support that except for, this just, the kind of, because all the other journal entries were very silly too. It wasn't like this was in the middle of, a serious hiking journal. This was something they were doing to entertain and amuse themselves while out on this. Because again, this is the 50s. It's not like they just immediately drove out there, hiked for the night, and were coming back. This was a multi-week trip to get out and do this. Because we're talking mid-50s Soviet era Russia. This was a big deal. This was a long-term vacation, essentially, not just a 1 or 2 day romp through the woods.
Required a lot of training and not just going out there for a little jaunt. It was a very ambitious trip from what it looked like.
Absolutely. So
the hiking gear is not what it is today back then, that's for sure, especially
and I think
Russia.
they were dealing with like -20 -30 like wind chill.
Crazy stuff. Yes, Tom, that's the one we're talking about. Jimmy had just shown an album that, kind of, was a concept for that one. And so we've escaped down a rabbit hole here.
Yeah, we have. Yes.
But no, it is an interesting case for sure.
All right, Professor Steele, what is your next piece of escapism?
Okay, well, it won't have the title, the word jailbreak in the title, so sorry, chat, to disappoint, but yes, this one I'll go with Ben. It does more of creating that kind of atmosphere where you can just really get kind of lost in it. It's an Australian band. I don't have a hard copy. This is the only one I have to show on the phone tonight. But it's an Australian band named Alchemist. This is their 3rd or 4th album titled Organism. They hard to describe. They have a pretty unique style. They definitely would fall in sort of a progressive category, but progressive in a very heavy way, not a cynic or dream theater kind of way. Very good at just kind of creating these kind of trancey beats. They use a little bit of native instrumentation here and there to kind of enhance that. A lot of kind of repetitive riffs and sections that kind of get you in that kind of zone or trance-like state. But it's very interesting music. It's really the kind of thing where you feel like you can get lost in it and explore. You can play it repeated times and hear very different things from take to take. Really cool album. My understanding is the band's other works are also pretty good. I've never come across any of their other albums. Somehow I found out about this one and have it downloaded, but the band's not around anymore. They were on the Australian metal scene for many years. They were one of the bands, along with Armored Angel, who set up the Metal in the Brain concert, which was a big annual festival in Australia for many years. I don't think they do it anymore. I'm pretty sure it's been discontinued. But so if you like those albums where you really do just feel like you're sort of, venturing off, into this headspace, this is the perfect kind of thing to play with headphones, when you can just sit, not be distracted by what's going on around you, and just, really pay close attention. You can really go deep into this kind of album. And kind of like what you said about hiking earlier, Jimmy, the album, it's a relatively long one, as I recall, and you listen through it and you're just like, huh, what, where'd the time go? Is that really the end of it? Geez, I've been sitting here and played the whole album. You kind of lose track of how time's really progressing with something like this. So kind of a cool one, and a little closer maybe to the traditional escapism we were looking for tonight.
Wasn't that album out on Relapse?
Yes, this one in particular got a better distribution with Relapse, which is probably the reason it was the one I stumbled across.
I may have it. I'll have to
years
look
ago.
I looked it up. It said 2000 it came out. I feel like I saw something in Metal Maniacs about that album.
Like if someone said Jeff Wagner recommended, he was probably a fan of it.
And I'm almost certain that's why I'd heard the name, so that when I came across it, I was like, oh, Jeff said it's good. I'm at least going to give it a chance for sure.
Cool.
All right.
All right, over to you, Marty.
Well, people have been clamoring for it in the chat, so this is probably one of the first albums at a younger age that ever really took me on a journey. And this is one of the most atmospheric. For being considered a prog metal record, there's a lot of sonic fog and mist swirling around on this record. I absolutely love it. From the Sorceress, song about a Salem witch, Fata Morgana, Guardian, Exodus. Oh my God. Songs that'll bring me to tears every time, no matter what my mood is. It just takes me away to olden times. I don't know. It sounds cheesy to say that, but it's true. It's absolutely true. The passion, the beautiful harmonies, the expertly constructed songwriting. It's just, I'm sorry, people that like Ray Alder, I get it. But this to me this was a snapshot in the moment of time. The album before it, also really killer, but this one is very special, very special. And yeah, walk through that archway into the void and drift onto this awesome, well composed metal music. One of the most early moments of me realizing that music can take you somewhere.
Excellent call for sure.
That's
Yep.
right. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep. And really kind of a pretty early example of an 80s metal album that does that. You know, a lot of the stuff, before that one, or bands playing a little bit more straightforward kind of stuff. I'm sure there's some examples if we thought about it for a while and dug deep, but that's a really early example of a band taking you really deep into that fantasy element.
Yeah, and using a producer that was provided to them from the record label that a lot of other Metal Blade bands recorded at, and coming up with a completely different result than a lot of the other bands that recorded at the same place. It's very strange. It just tells me that the band was, mixing alchemy or doing something with. It was just a weird, special occurrence. But all right, Jimmy.
Okay, my next one.
Me too, Melanie. Me too. Cheers.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, this one makes me cry too. One of my favorite bands, and this is a French band called Alcest. This is actually, I'm not going to butcher the French title, but it translates to Journeys of the Soul. And so Alcest, a French band, a lot of people describe them as black gaze. So there's an element of black metal, but also huge, heavy on the shoegaze, things like Slow Dive. And man, I mean, these guys, I really could have picked any of their first four records. I think they're all masterpieces. The singer, the way that he describes this music is that, and really the inspiration that he had to make this album, or just any of these albums, is that he had experiences of being in contact with a far off country when he was a child. And he generally refers to it as like a fairyland, and he didn't really able to make sense of it, but he has these sort of memories of this other world. And this was kind of like his intention to be sort of a journey to that other world. And this one, I mean, the best way I can describe Alcest, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen the movie Shawshank Redemption. And there's a scene, if you haven't, you should. Great movie. There's a scene in that movie where the main character, Andy Dufresne, it's basically they're all in prison, and he is in the warden's office. He maintains the library for the jail and gets a whole shipment from the library, from the state library, that has a bunch of records and an actual little turntable. And he's leafing through the records, and he finds this, it's like an Italian opera. And he gets in trouble doing this, but he actually takes the record player out, he puts the record on, and he takes the loudspeaker microphone and puts it right over the record player. And out in the yard, all of the inmates are outside having their outside time. And as they start to hear this music, they all just stop and just gaze up and just completely quiet. Nobody says a word, and it's just because they probably haven't heard music in 30 years. And the line that the character Red says, he says, "I have no idea to this day what those two Italian ladies were singing about. The truth is, I don't want to know. I like to think that they were singing about something so beautiful it can't be expressed in words. It makes your heart ache because of it." And I think that that can be applied to Alcest. I think that he transports you to whatever this world is that he sees in his mind. And I can only think it's the most beautiful place ever, and I just want to be there when I listen to this. I mean, there's the title track on this. I mean, I want to hear that on my deathbed. It just gives me so much hope and just, makes me cry. It's a beautiful, beautiful album. And this is a very special band and very special to me. And man, they just keep putting out gems as far as I'm concerned. But, the first three records really, really hone in on this sort of other world that he envisions, and absolute fantastical escapism, the epitome of fantasy, for sure.
Yeah, nice pick, Jimmy. I finally got some of their albums last year. Mike Seatown had recommended them a while back, and it just took me a while to find them, used in the wild. But yeah, they're quite good. You described them very eloquently there. Nicely done.
I just want to show real quick too. I did.
Okay,
cool.
Australian.
I've heard the Austral one is also.
I have not heard these since they came out. I have to throw them on.
If you need to escape this weekend, there you go.
There we go. We'll check it out. All right, Alan.
All right. Well, another one that folks mentioned in the chat earlier, and definitely counts for me, is Nocturnus. I always pick this Nocturnus, but you could pick, pretty much any of them. This is another one that goes in that kind of storytelling category for me, because they were always, very good at, creating these little mini epic sagas with a lot of their songs. And of course, yes, we all know first, death metal, keyboards, daring, innovative, blah, blah, blah. We've all heard it a million times. But, one of the things that was nice was that, they always found ways to use those to help get that sense of the story across. My favorite example, and why I usually reach for this one, is the song on here that's Aquatica, where, it starts off, with this, kind of, ominous, little beat and rhythm. And then you hear these funny little, bubbling sounds, it's submersible starting to go under the water, and, this music slowly picking up the tempo, and you can just see in your mind, this, little alien, submersible device, starting to dive under the ocean on some other planet, and it's pitch dark, and the bubbles are streaming past them, and they're trying to, explore. Are they there to rescue something, or are they honing in on some kind of signal that they've discovered light years away? You don't know, but yeah, it's just immediately sucks you in, and you're not going to bail out until you find out what happens in that story. So Nocturnus was very, very good at that, besides just having good musicians, and yes, using keyboards in a death metal band. Gasp. Yeah, that I always thought was the other secret weapon. The fact that, the songs had, this other sci-fi fantasy element to them that was very different from a lot of their contemporaries were doing, whether it be, zombie this, zombie that, guts, gore, this. Nocturnus, had maybe some of that here and there, but they also had, this other take where, you could really get into that and escape in a completely different direction if you wanted to. So yes, good call, chat. Nocturnus, definitely one you can escape to.
Jeff, good call. I totally didn't even think to pull any Dead Can Dance, but that they are the kings of escapism for sure.
That's one of those bands that's on my to check out this year list. It's been ages since I heard any of their stuff, and everybody always talks them up, so I will check them out sometime.
Oh, there's some great albums. Great. All right. Speaking of great albums, I think Jimmy and Jeff actually did a deep dive on this band, unless I'm getting deep dives confused. But this is my absolute favorite Bathory record.
Oh,
Blood on Ice. This album, I mean, the story is awesome. The tale of revenge, kind of spun through a Viking lens. But in particular, this whole album is top world class. But the Wood Woman and the Lake, those two songs, the Lake in particular, holy crap, the best songs Korthon ever wrote. I love the stacked choir. It plucks my soul right out of my head and flicks it into the plane of a wonder. And it's funny. I listen to these records. I'm going to show some other stuff here too from Scandinavia coming up, that they just sound, they have a sound to them that it makes me think in my stupid little brain that that's how it is to be in Norway and Sweden. It just, that's being there is how these albums, the way the albums sound is what it's like to be there. I don't know, but yeah, this album is an amazing story, amazing music. Hey, thanks so much, Wade. Totally appreciate it. You rule, sir.
Thank you, Wade.
Yep, Blood on Ice. If you're not familiar with Bathory, there's a couple different eras. The early black metal era, then there's like a transition from black metal into this Viking era, where he admitted to being very influenced by Manowar. You can kind of hear it here and there, but this album is so amazing, and it's one of those things he said that he had on in his found in his closet and had to dust it off and redo it. I don't know how, he lied so much in interviews. It's hard to say, but that's a great record, along with Hammerheart and Twilight of the Gods and all that stuff as well. And the Nordland albums are also very, 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 very great records. But that one is a great escapism record for me.
For sure. Even I think the Nordland records are my favorite, but I always found it interesting that he says that the Blood on Ice stuff preceded Hammerheart and Twilight of the Gods, because I always found Blood on Ice to be a lot stronger than those records. That's
I do too, and that just tells me he's lying.
Yeah,
He's lying.
If that is true, that album just feels so out of order from all the other stuff that came before and after. So I wouldn't buy.
No.
There
might have been a riff or two.
fit.
There might have been a riff or two, but
Sure.
I think the progression, not only, I mean, sonically, yeah, they recorded it later, but I don't know, just the vocal layering, his vocals are better on it. Because let's be honest, Twilight of the Gods, I love that record, but his vocals kind of suck on that record. They suck. His singing is not good, but I still love it. It still has a lot of charm. He's really trying. It's better on this one, and I just think I think he lied a lot to keep the enigma going, and that's all he had. I mean, he had great music, but he built up this mystery around his band, and it's kind of genius, really. It was kind of genius. No one knew that Boss, the owner, Boss, his producer and owner of Blackmark, was his dad. Not many people knew that, if any, other than maybe people that worked in the industry around them. But yeah, very interesting. Anyway, Jimmy, you're up.
Yeah, the trajectory that band had is pretty amazing, just in terms of, it's just interesting. So I'm going to go back a little bit and pick up some black metal. So this one I feel like kind of gets, I don't want to say overlooked, but I don't feel like it gets talked about as much as others. And so for this escapist record, I picked Satyricon's Dark Medieval Times.
I picked the one after it. Here, I'll talk about that next.
Oh, you did? Shadowthrone? Yeah, it's kind of hard. I mean, you could pick either one, really. But this is one of the newer pressings. And this is a very rare instance of, like, I like this artwork a lot better than the original, because I just feel like the original just looks a little clownish.
How did the horse get on top of that plateau? There's no path up. How did he jump up there? I mean, I've always wondered. How did that happen?
And it's like impossible to get a copy of it. So I've never seen a physical, but from what I understand, this was on the inside of this picture here.
Hold on, I'll grab it. I don't remember. Yeah.
And so, man, for me, I mean, this came out in 1993, and I mean, this is, you could argue this, but to me, this is almost like the first ever atmospheric black metal record. Because if you look at some of the early, a lot of the second wave Norwegian black metal, there was a certain, obviously there was a bunch of bands like that were kind of doing something similar, and everybody had their own take. But I feel like these guys had a wildly different take than the other bands. Oh, you've got it. Wow. That's probably worth something there, Marty.
I paid a lot for this when it came out
Yeah,
back in the days of
those early pressings. Yeah, you can't find that for shit. There's this one guy I follow on Instagram that got it on vinyl, and I don't know how much he paid, like $500 or something like that. Just a ridiculous amount. Yeah, see, that's it. Yeah. And I forgot the name of the artist, but this is an artist that does he's done a lot of stuff for Burzum. But man, I mean, like, it's, their first record, and these guys were all 17, and they had a clear vision of what they were doing. And I love the fact that, like, in a lot of ways, like, they're, a lot of their peers are all kind of probably influencing each other in what they're doing. I mean, you've got the buzzsaw, really just fuzzy lo-fi guitars, black metal guitars, but there's a whole other element to it with these sort of neoclassical, like, acoustic pieces, and they'll put them in place, like, on side of the really, the louder guitars, and it just gives it this just interesting atmosphere to it. The vocals are extremely scathing, and it's not without its flaws, but I kind of love the record for its flaws. And just because, I mean, they were just starting out, and I still feel like I just can see, the Norwegian mountains when I listen to this album. I mean, this predates Bergtot, predates In the Night Side Eclipse, and I could be wrong here, but I'd be hard pressed to find a record that came out before this that really had the sort of atmosphere that this record has. And I think it really, really stands up well today. The new pressing sounds really good. And Frost wasn't really quite the accomplished drummer that he became, but he's still really good off the bat.
Also, Satyr would keep him reined in too.
Yeah,
because Frost, I read some interview where Frost just wanted to go crazy on stuff, and he'd be like, and Satyr would be like, no, I envision this for this part. Just play it straight, play it clean. So yeah.
Yeah,
that's why he went on to be in like 1349 other bands where he could go fucking
go crazy.
Yeah.
Because there's one moment on one of these songs where he pulls out the fast double bass, and it kind of sounds goofy because it's like really, they hadn't, it's not like they were doing triggers or anything like that. So it's really kind of in the background, and it's kind of just this fuzzy, like, fast double bass. It's still still doing it, but it just sounds really interesting because nobody was really doing that at the time. But yeah, I agree, Zach. I mean, Nemesis Divina is probably the best one, but these first three, man, they're just classic.
It's hard not to. They're so good.
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't really follow these guys after, or I haven't really paid attention to anything after Nemesis Divina. I'm sure there's some good stuff in there.
There's some good stuff, but they got a little more, way more. They embraced being modern,
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, a total escapist record in the way that maybe Bergkat is, or just these early Norwegian records. They're all really escapist records, but I just felt like there was more to this than just the sort of like dirty kind of punk aesthetic that a lot of, some of the other bands were kind of gone for. This was about the atmosphere and about the mysticism and about, like it was, I don't know, it's dark medieval times. That says everything you need to know about this record. Those three words.
Yep. All right, Alan.
All right. Now for something completely different from that. Folks have mentioned this in the chat earlier, and we haven't really pulled a representative for it yet. There's a lot you could pick, but yeah, a lot of power metal, especially some of the European stuff, is very escapist in just, being, very fast, super catchy, big sing-along, happy, fun time German power metal type of music. And again, you could pull a ton of Helloween albums, Iron Savior albums, whatever. I picked Gamma Rays, Somewhere Out in Space. It's one of their best. It has a little bit of this kind of outer space theme. So again, it feels like, it kind of fits, that escapism theme. The first track is called Beyond the Black Hole. So yeah, it kind of, conveys that sense of, from everything and going to own. The whole style of metal is very escapist. If you just need something to, wake you up, kind of, shake off the doldrums and just get away from, the tedium for a bit and, have something kind of, recenter you on something that's fast and fun and, can perk you up right away. Any number of these kind of albums, if they're done well, if the band knows what they're doing, these definitely, yes, I agree with those in the chat who were talking about it earlier. This kind of power metal definitely works as, a good dose of escapism, for sure. Enough said. Again, I could have picked any one of dozens of different albums, but Gamma Ray was particularly good at this when they were in their prime, and so I went with Somewhere Out in Space.
Sometimes super positivity is an escape from reality.
Exactly. Yes,
Let's be
exactly.
honest.
Sometimes, yeah. That's sometimes, yeah. Especially, if you're just been doing something very tedious or not especially enjoying, and you just need something to sort of perk you up, brighten your spirits. A lot of those bands will do that, and do it very well and very quickly for you.
I gotta say, as a side note, I've been ever since I've done that review on Twilight Force, at the Heart of Wintervale. Go check out the review; it's on the channel. I got the actual copy of the CD, and I've been listening to it nonstop. It is some of the most over the top symphonic. It's like a power metal emperor, is what it sounds like. The synth work is infinitely layered and so dense, and every riff is a guitar solo. It's like really super new. It's amazing. And if you're into that stuff, check out that Twilight Force record. It's wow. I poked fun at it in the review, but it was all lighthearted. I love the record. It's great. Anyway,
no, there's tons of it's not going to get a whole lot of reviews or mentions probably because it's a smaller band, but if folks are looking for something else in that vein that's a little more underground, there's a UK band. I want to say they're Scottish. Apologies if I'm wrong, but they're called Ascension, and they've just released their second album, and it's total early Dragon Force worship, but the lyrics take a very different angle from just the generic sword, wings, fire kind of stuff. If somebody's wishing that, gee, I wish Dragon Force would still make something like Sonic Firestorm, that new Ascension album, it clicks those boxes. It's a little bit silly, a little goofy, total show-off, wankery stuff, but very, very fun in that same exact vein as the Twilight Force.
I've been really, really appreciating that stuff lately. I don't know. It's nice to have fun listening to music once in a while. I think people can get really downtrodden by, overly negative or depressive, or it's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah.
And to pull something out and that lifts you up and makes you laugh, maybe makes you air guitar a little bit. It's a good thing. It's good. It's good for the brain. Anyway, okay. Jimmy did that, so I have to.
I did Gamma Ray, so yep, you were up.
The Shadowthrone.
Mm-hmm.
Another Moonfog pressing.
Yeah, that cover art's always hard to make out what's going on there.
It was hard to pick between this and Dark Medieval Times, but I just think the vibe and overall songwriting is way smoother on this record. It's just an amazingly well-written black metal album. It's so atmospheric. Again, it makes me feel like I'm in the middle of the woods in Norway with some guy dolled up in corpse paint with a spiked goblin bat swinging it around at the trees and stuff. I don't know. It's just, it takes me in that moonlit path type thing. I think my favorite by this band is Nemesis Divina, but that is a lot more complex and maybe a little bit better produced. So the atmosphere is a little different on it. I still love it, but this one is I think their most atmospheric, and this one is the one that really takes me away. But I love it. I never get sick of this. Either the first three albums I do not get sick of. They're just great. I missed out on the vinyl pressings. I figured I got the CD. It's fine. And it actually bothered me, Jimmy, that they changed the artwork. I know that's probably an improvement, but I would have why didn't they just keep it the same? I mean, I like the Shadowthrone reissue artwork least. I mean, that one, I like the Dark Medieval Times one better than the Shadowthrone one. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah. I usually don't like it when bands do that, but that's one of those rare cases. But whatever. It's it happens too often, unfortunately. They do shit like that for reissues, and I don't really understand it. But
maybe they couldn't get the original, or they couldn't get it's hard to get a clean scan off of something this crappy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, with it being this old, they very easily could have lost the rights to a lot of the original artwork.
That could be too. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jimmy.
All right, kind of going traveling back out to another galaxy again with Blut Aus Nord. This is my favorite Blut Aus Nord record, and probably my intro to the band. Dialogue with the Stars. This is part 2 of the Memoria Vetusta series. I think, I don't know if I'm getting that right, but you know, a band that has had a lot of different faces, and this is kind of the more melodic and cosmic, atmospheric black metal side of the band, where he has, you know, his industrial side, and it's got a lot of different hats. But this album transports me. What better guitar player than this guy? Just the way he does his riffs and the melodies that he uses is unlike anybody else. I mean, when you hear the guitars of Blut Aus Nord, you just know it's this guy. Nobody sounds like him. And I think this is the one that really just probably kicked them up quite a few notches. Like at the time, I don't remember what year it was that this came out, but he was really ambitious and releasing a lot of records. You know, when it comes to contemplating the universe and the cosmos and, you know, our place in it, this is the album that does that for me. And ultimately, you know, I talk about like wilderness and being in nature, and this is another way to, you know, have a communion with the universe and the stars. And an absolutely amazing black metal record. It's just drenched in atmosphere and amazing melodies that, you know, the drum machine can take a little bit to get over, but it doesn't really take away from it. There's just so much layers and so much feeling to what he's doing here. And I just have not found its like, I don't think he's really quite beat it with some of his other records in this series. I think Hallucinogen was really great. Apparently he's working on a part 4. I thought that was coming out actually, and then he released the most recent one, which is great as well. But I just like that this guy has a lot of different ways to do his music, but like still retains like the core of his sound. It's really just an amazing artist. Yeah, this one's just really, really near and dear to me. Dialogue with the Stars.
Very cool. Yeah, this is a band I'm starting to work my way through. Dead Can Dance is still in line, but Blut Aus Nord is kind of at the front of the line. So I've been able to stumble into a couple of their albums recently. So I'm working my way through it. It'll take a while, of course, but yeah, I seem to have a lot of really cool stuff in their catalog.
Some people really like that stuff, and some people really like the industrial stuff. So it's really different. But
the Mystical Beast of Rebellion and the work that transforms God, there are guitar riffs on there that while he's playing, he's like bending the strings a little bit. It just sounds diseased and wrong. I like get these mental visions of like these organic planes dropping bodies onto a battlefield. It's weird. I go in a weird place when I listen to those records. They're just so dark and so twisted sound, and it's genius. It's genius that he can do that. You know, he can bring people to that mental nightmare, you know.
Yeah, I feel like on Dialogue with the Stars, he does that similarly, but he did it in a way that's a little bit more easy to digest and not as like just jading as some of that stuff from Mystical Beast and Work Transforms God. It's a little more, it just found a way to make it a lot easier to listen to, I guess.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
All right, Alan. Caught you mid-chat typing there.
Yep. Lots of good comments in the chat. Having a little trouble keeping up with anybody, but yeah, thanks to everybody who's typing and sharing and posting lots of cool stuff.
Always a lively bunch.
Indeed. Let's see. Which one do we want to mention next? I will go with this one. A little different take. I think a lot of early and even later Iron Maiden fits the escapism category very well. And this goes back to that storytelling angle for escapism. You know, Iron Maiden did, an excellent job of, taking all of these, classic stories, short stories, and poems and stuff, and turning them into these little mini epic songs. Each one was like, its own little world, its own little story encapsulated, whether it's, the battlefield of the trooper, whether it's the wartime of Where Eagles Dare, the mythology, Flight of Icarus, all of their songs, you just dive into it and you're living that story. You're hearing it told back to you from their perspective, and it works incredibly well for a big chunk of their catalog. Not every song fits that style, of course, but they're excellent storytellers. And again, I always think good stories are an excellent way to escape. They're also an excellent way to kind of learn things, expand your horizons a bit. I always figure a lot of metal fans are actually fairly well read. They are relatively literate, much more so than they get credit for. And I always feel like Iron Maiden is one of those bands that contributed to that, because tons of kids were running to the high school library to get out of class, but also to look some of these things up to see what the heck some of these books were. To Tame a Land, Quest for Fire, where did they get these ideas from? Well, let's go look it up and read it a bit. So yeah, I think Iron Maiden's definitely one of those bands that you can escape into. Every song kind of takes you into a completely different place, a different story, a different little world to check out. I just pulled Peace of Mind because it's one of my favorites, and it's got lots of good examples of songs that do this.
Right on. All right. Well, since Alan showed Gamma Ray, I had to. This is a recent weird escape record for me, which this is, I think, someone Andre, I think, mentioned, talked about nostalgia shaping our listening experience, and nostalgia and escapism. I think this kind of blurs the lines, because I didn't own this album back in the 90s when it came out, but Time of the Oath by Helloween, I've been putting this on lately. The kid loves this one, so we've been listening to it a lot when we're driving around. And though I did not have this in the 90s, I didn't get this until later. It just sounds like the 90s. I love the production of it. It just sounds like a 90s metal record, and it takes me back to a time where I had all these ideas and things I was trying to do and excitement surrounding them, and it just, this youthful vigor. And now that the dreams have been crushed, it's weird to put something on like this and be reminded of maybe a little more joyous times. But this record has been doing it for me. I know, Alan, if I remember right, there's parts of this you don't like, and towards the end there's a couple so-so songs, but
yeah, there's every Helloween album is going to have one or two clunk, but everyone's also going to have multiple killers on it. Yeah.
But yep, this album for me, it does it for me, and it takes me back to maybe happier days, and it just sounds, it's got a non-digital sound, if that makes any sense. It sounds like it was recorded on tape. It sounds like Helloween. It sounds like a product of its time, and it stands up the test of time. Absolutely. It sounds just as relevant. Takes me back to better times. I guess that's by way of nostalgia, a form of escape.
Oh yeah.
Uli Kush's drumming on that is unbelievable.
Dude, Uli Kush, I'm assuming, is the drummer on this, right?
I'm pretty sure that was his
pretty
first
sure
one.
that's his right. If I might be wrong, but I think he's on that one.
Yep, he is on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Such an underrated drummer.
He's a great drummer.
Yep.
Absolutely great drummer. And it's, yeah. He was on Master of the Rings too, wasn't he?
I don't remember if he's on that one. I know he's on Better Than Raw. The one that
he's definitely on Better Than Raw. Yep.
Yeah. I'm not sure about Master. Might be, but I'd have to double check.
Well,
yeah, I think Ingo's already out of the band by Master. I don't think he was. I can't remember if Ingo's on that one or if he was out right before that one.
He died around that time. So
yeah.
Okay, while Jimmy is talking about his, I will look that little tidbit of info up.
Fair.
This next one I picked is kind of an unknown. I wonder if anybody knows about this band, but they are called Ildra, and the record is called Aetherland. And
I've heard the name, but I've
got that CD, I believe. Yeah, it's good.
This is a sort of I think this is a repressing of the band. So this is, they're from the UK, pagan black metal, very much in the spirit of Viking era Bathory. And, a lot of bands kind of do that sort of thing, but, to do it right is very difficult. And I think these guys really nail it. And they nail, the spirit, the feeling. They sort of capture their own history. This is deep history as far as like the escapism. All of the lyrics and the song titles are all in old Anglo-Saxon language, I believe, which is cool. In this pressing, is everything is also put in regular English, so we can read about. I'm not really a lyric guy as well, but I did peruse the song lyrics, and there's a lot of callings to certain old writings. There's a song about Beowulf. There's a lot of stuff in here that is very well researched. And as far as the music goes, it's just it's a fucking great riff album, and it's also a great in terms of like the dynamics. There's a lot of just variety to what they're doing here. There's the black metal songs, there's the acoustic folk sort of interludes. They're not even really interludes, they're full songs, but the album just has a nice flow to it. And this came out in 2010, I believe. These guys were like a one and done, I think. It's the only full length. I don't know anything about the members. I wonder if anybody in the chat does that was saying that they like this one. I learned about this from my buddy Tyler, Alaskan Berg Wanderer, shout out. And he's a really big and got his thumb in a lot of just sort of underground, unknown black metal kind of stuff. But very the name is Ildra, Ildra. So if you look them up, you'll find them on Encyclopedia Metallium. But again, it's kind of a recent discovery for me, and I don't really go too deep in like the sort of pagan stuff, like pagan black metal or pagan. There's a lot of pagan this and pagan that. A lot of times I find that stuff to be kind of cheesy and not really, kind of tongue in cheek. But this is very, very serious, and I think what these guys doing are digging very deep into their roots, into their history. And I'm talking like deep history. You talk about Anglo-Saxon history, or we're looking, pre-BC or whatever it is. I don't. I read a lot of history, but I don't really have a very good grasp of the sort of history that this encompasses. But I can tell just from the sound of it that it's very serious. It's very, very intended to be, well. Paying that homage to that deep history that we don't really have here in the States. And I really like that. I find that very escapist, and it makes me want to delve deeper into just reading about this stuff. But I think that the music itself, I can feel it and I can see it. And in that, I think that deep history is very much escapist, because we're talking about a time that, where the world was very, very different from what it is today, and a world where we cannot really comprehend, what it was like then. But great stuff. If you're into Bathory, Viking era Bathory, just an awesome listen top to bottom. Every song is amazing. Great riffs, just variety, dynamic. Man, I wish I knew more about who's in this, because who the fuck knows who these guys are. But yeah, Ildra, very cool stuff.
And Uli Kush did play on Master of the Rings. Anyway.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Great drum. So,
Jimmy, you mentioned the Beowulf reference there. Talk about a scenario where you really do want to escape. My sister had to read Beowulf in like high school English, and it was like supposed to be like an AP, like college level English class thing. And I remember coming home one day just totally, dejected. And it's like, okay, what's up? Apparently her entire English class, except for her, had this like little mini revolt against the English teacher when they were discussing Beowulf, because none of the kids could get it through their head that these people, wanted to go to like, the Beowulf equivalent of, Valhalla or whatever. Because they just kept pestering the teachers like, that's impossible. When you die, you have to go to heaven or hell. and my sister kept saying, she was like,
welcome to the South.
my sister was like, folks, these aren't Christian characters. These are people that lived in a non-Christian nation. They didn't have a heaven or hell.
There was a world.
And every other kid in her class was just like, That doesn't matter. There's only two choices. They go to heaven or they go to hell. These other places
Right.
aren't real. They don't exist. And apparently this went on for the entire English class that day. And that is why my sister no longer lives in this part of the country.
Right.
It's an interesting story. It really is. You know?
It's and again, and this isn't like this was the remedial English class, for the kids who had already popped out a couple of babies or something. This was the AP. These were the smartest kids in her grade level.
And I'm sure there were some parents that got a hold of school. What kind of evil stuff are you making my kid
Right,
read?
and thus they don't teach Beowulf anymore whatsoever.
That teacher got in trouble for a different book. It wasn't Beowulf, but yes, they had one of the local preachers.
I had to read Grendel in my senior class. Did you ever read Grendel? That's the monster. That's the story
the
from
Minster's point of view. No, we didn't read. My class got through Beowulf without incident. My sister was not as lucky.
Interesting.
All right, Alan.
All right. Oh, but Pat made a comment about a band, and it was close to the top of the stack anyway. So, Pat, you're absolutely right. Candlemass, great escapist stuff. We've shown one or two albums that are concept albums, and when bands are turning the whole album into a story, if it's done well, that's one that you can definitely really get lost in. And Candlemass does it quite well here with sort of their take on the Genesis mythos.
That album is great. I mean, it's kind of overlooked in the pantheon of the first four, but man, it's a great record. It's so good.
Yeah, I think it only gets overlooked because it is number 4 in the sequence of 4 really good albums.
Yep.
And it's already the third one with Messiah. So in a way, it feels like it's just doing the same thing the previous two did, which is, yeah, it is. But what
It's
they
heavier.
did for those
It's
albums
heavier.
is
I don't know. There's
great.
something about it. It's more dense. I don't know. There's something about it. It's Ancient Dreams I liked, but I think this album is a little meaner, a little more composed. I don't know. Whatever.
It's got a story structure to kind of guide it rather than just being an assemblage of songs. It's got this killer instrumental right in the middle of it too, which is not a phrase you will often hear me utter. Killer instrumental is like essential outro. They don't really exist very often in the wild. But Into the Unfathomed Tower, it's 2.5 minutes divided into 8 parts or 7 parts. You can tell where exactly every part begins and ends, and it's just total foot on the gas pedal shred fest, and it works perfectly. And it shouldn't for a band that's going for the doomy majesty of Candlemass, but just from kind of the dreamy weariness of Under the Oak, the short spoken parts that help narrate it, move the story along, works incredibly well. Candlemass is great escapism, and while I know Messiah's voice can be a sticking point for some folks, he really did add this extra epic grandeur to their sound that they don't have with their other vocalists. I like tons of the material they did with other singers, but none of them ever quite feel like they've got that same big, epic, cathedral-sized sound that they have when doing the vocals for them. So yes, Candlemass is one of those dreams you can definitely curl up under an oak and fade away and have all kinds of ancient dreams listening to their stuff.
Totally.
I was going to try working one more album title, but I froze up.
I don't know. It was pretty poetic though. I liked it.
Thank you. I got a couple of them in there. Chapter 6. No, that doesn't work. Fuck. Over to you, Marty.
All right. Well, this is an escapism record for me, but it's to pretty much the same little room that this ritual is happening in, but Samael's blood ritual. This is one of the most evil records outside of Don't Break the Oath ever. I mean, it's often overlooked, I think, for Ceremony of Opposites, which I love. I have a hard time deciding if it's Blood Ritual or Ceremony of Opposites. Both of them are on the same level of awesome.
Yep.
A lot of, I don't know if I want to call this first wave black metal, but it's got that feel. It's heavier. It's just so dark. The song with the pianos and the baby crying, and it feels like you're like creeping in and looking through the shadows upon this satanic ritual. It's just, I love this record. It's like this band lost their charm after they dropped the drums. I'm sorry. I know if Matt from Dark Path was here, he would be flipping tables and hurling insults at me. But this is a very great, dark, evil record. Takes me away definitely to moonlit cemeteries and haunted chapels where babies are having bad things happen to them. But anyway, great record. Good escapism record.
Yeah, having your binky taken away, that sucks.
That does suck.
So I'm told. Talking from a friend's experience.
Oh man, poor friend.
All right.
Well, I'm going to change it up a little bit, and I could have picked a Cynic record easily for this, but I wanted to try and do something a little different in that realm. So this is a record that's, man, it's like I remember where I was. You know, it's a nostalgic record, and this is Gordian Knot's self-titled. And Gordian Knots, if you're not aware, was Sean Malone, rest in peace, the bassist for Cynic. Also, Sean Reinert on drums, rest in peace.
Oh, okay, that's right. It rang a bell, but I couldn't place it until you said that.
Yeah. So this Sean Malone was, he was a schooled musician. He taught, and I think a lot of things that led up to his suicide, unfortunately, was that he never felt like he really accomplished anything, which blows my mind. But he always thought that he sucked or something. And I couldn't believe that when I heard that Paul Masvidal said that. But
wait, say that again. He thought that he sucked.
Okay, I should rephrase that. He didn't think he sucked. He just didn't think he was successful. That's what I should say.
That's why. Oh my gosh.
And he was a very depressed person, tortured soul. I never knew this until he died. But that's what it was. I should correct that and say that he did not feel that he was as successful as he wanted to be. And, for the majority of his life as a musician, he was a teacher, as I said. And he released this record, Gordian Knot. This would have probably been, I don't know, early 2000s, 2002, something like that. This could easily be passed off as just a wankery kind of, musician kind of album. And on the one hand, it kind of is that. But on the other hand, there's a lot more going on here. And what's going on is really good songwriting. Now, if you like Cynic, you're going to like this a lot. It doesn't really sound like Cynic. It's very driven by Malone's bass playing. He does a lot of different types of bass, fretless bass. Chapman stick is very prevalent on this. But musicians on here, you have Trey Gunn from King Crimson. You have Ron Jarzenbeck, Watchtower, Spastic
He's
King.
a sane guitar player.
You have John
His
Young.
His brother is an insane drummer.
Oh, yeah. Bobby.
Okay.
Bobby didn't play, I don't think on any of the Gordian Knot stuff, but great drummer. John Young from Dream Theater. So a lot of different guests. But the music is, this is another journey to the cosmos. And a melodic, there's a lot of jazz. There's a lot of, I shouldn't say jazz. I should say more like fusion. It's the drumming. I mean, it's Sean Reinert, so you know what you're getting. Agora, yeah, really good. I thought this was a little better than Agora, but he did a second follow-up to this, which, when this came out, Cynic had not reformed. I mean, early 2000s, Cynic was still not in anybody's mind that they were actually going to ever do anything again. And when it did Gordian Knot 2, he reunited Masvidal and Jason Gobel and Reinert and himself into one of the songs on that record. Another great record too. Did these two records and that was it. He was going to do a Gordian Knot 3, but it just never happened. And I was always hoping that it would. But he also released a self-titled record. Actually, it wasn't self-titled, but it was just under his name, Sean Malone. It was called Courtland. It was kind of similar in this realm, but a lot more jazz fusion kind of stuff with Reinert on drums. If you like Reinert's drumming, man, got to get on this. Got to get on those Sean Malone records. But I don't know. It's not wankery. This is very, very well-intentioned, written music that, while trying to showcase all the musicians, is very much melodic prowess and very emotive. Absolutely beautiful. And just to sell anybody that has any apprehension to something like this, I would direct you to the last track on this. It's not actually in the track list, but it's a song called Grace. You can look up Gordy Knot Grace. It's beautiful, beautiful song. All performed on the Chapman stick amongst some other instruments with Sean Malone at the helm. And so rest in peace, man. And very escapist record for me. I just remember when it came out, and I'm always wanting Cynic to come back together, and this satiated that need in those days. So great stuff.
All right. Alan.
All right, another one that just popped up in the chat. So definitely was getting close to the top of the stack anyway. This is escapism through atmosphere, like the Alchemist that I mentioned before. Morgan. Very few bands do it as well as they did.
Great stuff.
Yes, just really well crafted, put together very well, very thoughtfully done. And they transition so well from heavy sections to these very dreamy sections. Can be quiet, can be sad. They can turn it up and roar a bit when they need to. But yeah, total atmospheric band. Longtime viewers have heard me tell the story before, but I saw them one year at the Milwaukee Metal Fest. They were on the relapse stage, so they got 20 minutes, which is enough time to play about 3/4 of one song for a band like this. But not only did they just crush it, they managed to just completely transform the stage. And again, it's this tiny little relapse stage off from any of the main stages. But they had the lights up actually quite bright, but they got a lot of fog, dry ice on the stage, so you really couldn't see the band very well. You could see just they're silhouetted in the fog, but again, it was a bright kind of fog. It wasn't like it was dark. They hadn't killed the lights and all that kind of stuff, and it just fit the mood of this music perfectly. That they got up there, played a few songs. Just devastatingly heavy, and you're just the fact that you're the whole time you were trying to see them, you're just trying to get a glimpse of them, and you just couldn't. You could see they were there, but you just couldn't get a clear look at them. It was just the perfect atmosphere for their style and their sound. They only got to do 3 albums, unfortunately. This is by far my favorite. The other 2 are fine as well, but a great atmospheric band. This is another one. Get rid of the distractions, turn off the cell phone, shut down the computer, put in the headphones, and just go wherever this album takes you.
Good call. Good one.
Man, I wish they were still around. The follow-up was great too.
Yes, was it like Cloaked in Ages,
Crowned in Earth, I think.
Yeah, I always get the second half of it wrong. Yeah, that one's also quite good. That one's got kind of a little concept, that goes through the album too and kind of ties the tracks together. Yeah, great stuff. All right, Marty, you are up, sir.
Well, I've got a pretty solid run of Norwegian things coming, so I'm going to mix in a little bit of non-metal stuff here. Metal adjacent? Maybe. One of the most atmospheric albums ever, Fields of the Nephilim, Elysium. This album there are 3 moments on this record that bring me to tears every single time. No matter what mood I'm into, whenever I put this record on, I end out the other end pretty miserable. and it's, it's because it's beautiful, because it's sad, because it's atmosphere. I mean, it's just like the perfect storm of elements that tie together, and this is very much escapism music as well. Very much. I mean, their first 3 albums sound nothing alike one another. I guess the first and second are probably the closest, but they started out kind of spaghetti western goth, and then they kind of went more heavier guitar goth, and now on this they're kind of leaning into the goth, and you can smell the smoke machine coming out of the speakers on this stuff, absolutely. But if you've never heard Fields of the Nephilim, I don't know if this is the place to start. I would probably start with the album called The Nephilim. It is probably a good transition between the first and the third record. But yeah, this is a very much an escape album, and it's typically an escape from happiness. But good stuff.
Yeah, it can be very beautiful music too.
Oh,
It's the funny
absolutely.
thing. Yeah, that you can play that album and find it, a lot of beauty, and you can play it again and find a lot of sadness. But yeah, it's a hard band to think of a starting point. The first album, people gravitate towards because of, like you said, that spaghetti western imagery, but it's not something they did, or didn't seem to permeate, in later albums a lot. Yeah, I pulled Revelations just to pick a different one for a change, but yeah, it's hard to pick a bad one. Maybe there's a bad one I haven't heard.
They really haven't had. I mean, there's an album called Fallen that they sent to Beggars Banquet as demos to show their progress, and the label released it.
Yeah, and weren't supposed to.
But there's still some cool songs on it. Is it a bad album? It isn't. It's just not as produced and polished, I guess. But even the last one they did, Morning Sun, great. They got a little bit heavier, a little more guitar driven, a little more metalized, I guess. I mean, he's done a guest vocal spot on Wataine's Sworn to the Dark. Is that the name of the album? Sworn to the Black? I don't know.
Really?
Sworn to the...
I bought that record because of him being on it, and he says 3 freaking words on it. I'm like, I bought this shit for 3 words. I was expecting more, and it just wasn't there. But yeah. Anyway, Jimmy.
Yeah, I found Elysium for $1 at a I don't know where it is. I've got one of these Entertain Mart stores nearby that has just like old shit that nobody ever wants, tons of games, CDs, DVDs, stuff. I found Elysium and the live record, each for $1. And
nice.
I had heard you talk about that before, Marty, and so like very good stuff. It's almost kind of like reminds me of like I love Depeche Mode. It's like if Depeche Mode went like uber dark or something. Like it just got that's kind of what they do for me, and but very, very escapist stuff, and just kind of I need to delve into the rest of their catalog because I only really know Elysium. That was kind of the start for me. But for me, it was a good start.
Yeah. And I got to say that you got it for $1. I bought this when it came out from a record store in Grand Rapids called Vinyl Solution, which is I didn't think about it then, but now it's just not right. But anyway, you made a UK import. This was a $25 CD at the shop. I paid a lot of money for this, and it was worth every penny. $1, you got to steal. Tom, thank you so much. Decoria, Wisdom Floats.
Appreciate it, Tom.
You know what? That is a good. I have not thought about that band in ages. Holy crap. Anyway, thank you so much, Tom. Jimmy, you're up.
Don't know that one. I have to check that out.
I don't know it either.
They were on Metal Blade, weren't they, Tom? I think they were. Anyway.
I'm going to do 2 together because these have a lot to do with each other. And so to start it off, and this is a very new one, and this is Stango Regal with, I'm not going to butcher the name, but learned about these guys from Brain Smasher. And this is a Slovakian band. And I was initially intrigued by that because like some of those East European countries, like I know nothing about, and I find them just sort of like escapists, just out of not knowing anything about them in a way. And this was a really interesting one because like, Ben was going crazy about this. And when Ben goes crazy about a record, I pay attention. And when I first heard it, I did not like it, to be honest. And I think what it was is I just had a hard time with the vocals. And then, I let it sit for a while. I went back to it after everybody was saying, oh man, it's like, let me go back to this. I love the cover art. And it was like, man, how did, you ever listen to a record and you're like, you didn't like it at first and you go back to it and you're like, this is fucking amazing. And I was like, why didn't I like this? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Just maybe whatever mind frame you were in, but this is the absolute, epitome of escapism. And Slovakia, dark fantasy for sure. Atmospheric black metal harkens to the old style for the 90s, black metal, and really, really sell it with the melodies here. It's just, it's otherworldly and just woodland feeling to it. And you got to love that cover art. This is an amazing pressing too. All the artwork, don't sleep on this if you're into that style of stuff. And the other band that this guy is in is Malocarpatan, which I'm not really familiar with. Another band that I had checked out, and at first I didn't like. I feel like I need to go back to them. But this was kind of like the sleeper of 2022, and like everybody's kind of talking about it all of a sudden, and rightfully so, because it's an amazing, amazing record. This next one is in the same realm as the last Negura Bunget, and I tried to get into Negura Bunget for they've been around for a long, long time. Never really quite grabbed me, this band, and my motivation for getting this record was watching you guys with Austin, and Austin really, really pimped the hell out of this. He talked about what he loved about it, and the way he talked about it was like, man, I got to check this out. He was totally right. Just an absolutely romantic, beautiful black metal swan song for this band, since the band leader is dead now. And I said, Stanga Rigel is Slovakian. These guys are Romanian, another romantic Eastern European country that I don't know anything about, the Carpathian Mountains. And I think that's what these guys are singing about. If you read the lyrics, it's just poems, really. It's not really, I don't necessarily think this is about deep history, or it's just a homage to their homeland. And that's a beautiful thing. And when you listen to their music, I think that you can see their land. And that's what's beautiful about great black metal, great atmospheric black metal is, especially when it's cultural, when it's another country, you feel where they're from, and that's especially so in the instrumentation of this record, with the different, all kinds of interesting instruments in here that are littered, drenched in atmosphere, drenched in reverb, and definitely black metal in here. But, for a band that is done now, this is a beautiful last statement from them. And, as Austin said with you guys, is I want to delve into Romanian culture. I felt the same way when I listened to it, but absolutely escapist. Eastern European forests and mountains is all I can think about when I listen to this. And Stanga Rigel.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's one. Like you, Jimmy, I heard it, and it didn't really click with me the first time, but I put it on the circle back to it list, and so I shall do so. I know it ranked really, really high for Kellen and or Craig Zoller. It was in their top albums of the year from last year.
All right, Alan.
All right. Here's an obscure one that doesn't come up often, but one of those random albums I found out about back in the day and always liked. Australian band again called Vaudeville, but spelled in a very annoying way. It's always a pain. I never spell it right when I'm typing it into search for the band. The album's called Two Dimension Logic, and it's a prog metal outing. It is very good, though, at getting that kind of dreamy, escapist, a little bit of world building thing going on, especially side one. The first half of this, the tracks are just seamless, yet you always know when you're changing from one song to the next. They fit together incredibly well, and it has a very unique vibe about it. When we covered the Fate's Warning deep dive with Jeff Wagner last year, we were kind of discussing what other bands ever really developed that same kind of big escapist mentality that you highlighted earlier when you talked about Awake in the Garden, Marty. The one thing Jeff thought of right away is the Vaudeville album comes very close to doing that, at least for most of the album. And he's right. It is, a fantastic one again, just to get lost in. Excellent vocals. The production holds it back a little bit. This was on a really small label. The band didn't really get a chance to do a follow-up. I think they did an EP, but it was a few years later. There were member changes. There were stylistic. So this is really the only thing that's out there that captured this sound. But they were doing something very interesting and did it very, very well right off the bat with this one release. So yeah, if you want something that's more in that 90s progressive metal vein, but done exceptionally well. Yeah, again, it may be. I have no idea if this is hard to track down or if it's been reissued 100 times. No idea. But Vaudeville's Two Dimension Logic is a really good one. for folks that are into that ilk.
All right. And I got a lot of Norwegian shit coming at you here. And like Jimmy said, you can hear the band's culture and geographic location in their music. It's very appealing. Very appealing. And I really connected hard with the 90s black metal Norwegian sound. They're just very frequently playing all 6 strings, the way they play the guitar, the way they construct their harmonies and melodies, and Winder, Arntor. This album is Jimmy on his channel did a kind of like retracing the final hours of Valfar, is that his name?
Yep.
Of his life. He left a bar and went trudging through a mountain pass in the middle of a blizzard and died of hypothermia. And Jimmy tried to recreate his trek in the video. It's a very interesting video, but this is a very Norwegian sounding album. I love the folk elements on this thing. Even though it's all computerized drums, it doesn't detract from the atmosphere at all. If anything, it kept things neat and tidy for all these accordions and whatever the hell it is it's on this record. Valfar's vocals are scathing, absolutely scathing, and the folkish styled black metal melodies and the guitar work on here is just otherworldly atmosphere. It feels like you're in this cabin staring out into the mountains. Absolutely great record. I like all Winder stuff. This is my favorite. I think this and the debut are my 2 favorite, but there is not a bad record amongst the bunch. But this one is a special snapshot in time for sure. Love this record. Absolute album for escaping for sure.
Amazing record.
Amazing.
I wonder what he would have done if he wouldn't have died,
Yeah. It's always the what if, isn't it? The what if. All right, Jimmy.
Let's see. So, okay, this one a little bit different. And so, everybody, most people, if you're into, especially, North American black metal, you like Wolves in the Throne Room. And great band for sure. And so I could, definitely pick any of their records as escapist for sure. For me, that band, as you just said, Marty, when we talk about the Norwegian scene, I think that the Wolves really, they not only, pull in their music, their land and where they're from, the Cascadian, the Pacific Northwest.
That definitely has all the bands that came out of there have a sound. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, and of course they kind of started it, but the cool thing about Wolves is they live it. They have their own farm. I mean, they have, of course, internet and they, normal things, but they very much kind of walk the walk in a lot of ways.
Do you think, I don't mean to interrupt you here. Do you think the whole farm thing is true? I mean, because they spend a lot of time on the road. There's no way you're maintaining a farm while you're out gallivanting around the globe.
Well, I think so. For a while, Aaron, the drummer, was not touring with them. They had a fill-in drummer for when they really ramped up again. He stayed home for all that. So
right on.
There could be there surely could be some fuckery with that, but I've read a lot of interviews with Aaron, and I really connect with just his view on the world and his view on, I mean, like, I'm not like,
it doesn't matter. I was curious.
No. And it could be probably, I'm sure it could be a bit embellished. Sure. I mean, that's very possible. And I think that they've been very vocal about saying, like, we're not completely cut off or anything, but they do, live in an area that I feel like, the way they've talked about it resonated with me, and I felt like I felt that it was authentic. But who knows?
Right.
But even if
they're pretty honest, like you said about it too, Jamie. Just in terms of like, look, we realize, yes, we are playing electronic instruments and using recording software and stuff like that. That doesn't make us hypocrites. If we're doing this other stuff.
And they've even talked. We've got internet. I'm sure they've got the normal things that you would have, even though. But they still, I think they walk the walk. When I say that, I think they walk the walk in terms of their ideologies about the world and about modern living and I just think that it kind of comes across when you listen to their music. But you know, whatever is not real there. It doesn't feel that way to me. But anyway, you know, this record, Celestite, a lot of people didn't like because it was a complete deviation from black metal. This is, you know, completely ambient, dark ambient is what this is. And it's basically a reimagining of the record Celestial Lineage. You know, they took a lot of the melodies and a lot of the themes from that album, and they translated them into you know, synthesizers and just, you know, very similar to what like Blood Incantation did when they released Time Wave Zero. They dropped that record and people hated it because you're supposed to be a death metal band. Kind of similarly, you're supposed to be a black metal band. You release this completely different and off the cuff from what they would do.
There's a level of how dare you and
how dare you? Yeah.
Definite diehard metal fans. They can't listen to anything but metal ever. You know.
Yeah. And for me, like, I like that. I dig when a band deviates if it's good. You know what I mean? If it sucks, well, you know, I mean, personally, I like that Blood Incantation. Time Wave Zero. I think it's a good record. You know, I think they're wearing their influences on their sleeves in a lot of ways. But about the Wolves record, I don't know that they, you know, these guys came from a punk rock background and then they went on to do black metal and then they come out with this and they've got all this, you know, experience all of a sudden doing all this crazy, like, you know, Tangerine Dreamy kind of synth work. I mean, and but it's a very dynamic album. It's not, you know, like you listen to things like Time Wave Zero, it's a very slow build. This is really just kind of all over the place. When I talk about, you know, that first record that I talked about, Humanoid, is very much in the same realm for me. Is like when I can be in a place where I've got an obscured view of the sky and I can just look up. And if I get some sort of inkling of the Milky Way and I can put this on, this is just is the soundtrack for that. And it transports you to that sort of realm, you know, and very much a woodland black metal band interpreting the cosmos with this. And so, I mean, I would say don't sleep on this. I mean, it's like let it kind of sit. And since then, they went back to what they do. They've released 2 great black metal records since then. But I would love to hear them do this again. And it goes to a lot of different places, and they do it amazingly expertly. It's just kind of out of left field, like, wow, these guys can do this sort of thing. Interesting, you know. But
and it's kind of cool too from a marketing perspective, because albums like that are a good stopgap while you're writing for a bigger record. I think there's a little less heavy lifting doing a record like that. You know, Time Wave Zero, that album served a lot of purposes. It, you know, showed a band trying something different and buying time until the next fulling, and it can be good. The results can be great. I have not heard that record, so I can't say whether or not I like it, but I remember when that came out, a lot of people, like, they shit in their Wheaties, you know. Wolves in the Throne Room weren't happy.
Well, and the most important thing when you deviate like this is, like, you know, if it's good, does it exist in the realm of what you do in your other style? That's what's most important. If it doesn't, then okay, maybe it sucks. But personally, I think this stands beautifully next to the record that it was inspired by, which is Celestial Lineage, one of my favorite Wolves records. And so,
So let me ask you another question. This is like a totally whatever, but would that have been a better release to buy on CD where it's uninterrupted?
Probably so. Actually, I have it on CD as well. So,
right on.
But
that breaks up the flow, having to stop and flip sides. You know, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I mean, like, my copy is really. If I was going to put it on, I don't even ever listen to it at home. That's the sort of record I listen to when I'm camping. Or, you know, so I mean, I'm not going to play it over and over again. You know, that's again like that. Like the first record I talk about, Humanoid. I mean, I don't really listen to that at home. That's when I'm out by a campfire looking at the stars. You know,
absolutely, right on. Okay. Sorry to interrupt you so much on that one, Jamie.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Right on. Alan.
Good. Yeah. Slightly different style, but the same general points that you just made. Jimmy and folks were talking about this one in the chat earlier. Agalic does really good at, you know, this same kind of escapist vibe. Maybe, not, searing black metal all the time, but, they've got, the post-rock elements and such. Yeah. I remember, when this band was starting to get big, I kind of avoided them for a while. I wasn't sure what the heck to make that looked like this, just to be honest. I'm like, it's a funny name, and that's a big old moose, elk, reindeer. There's some large hooved, artiodactyl on the cover. I'm not sure what that's going to sound like, but I eventually, checked it out. And yeah, especially the first 3 or 4 albums are all very good. They kind of get you into, like you said, just going out and exploring. You get the sense that you're really getting away from the modern world a little bit, and finding a different place to explore, which is very cool. And they do it very well with their music. So yeah, this one's again a little further away from the metal stuff, metal adjacent. I guess it's still fair to call them metal for the most part, but not something I listen to all the time, but when I'm in the mood for it, their albums have held up really, really well, in my opinion, over the past few decades. The last album, I guess, was the only one that never clicked for me, but all the other stuff in their catalog is very cool and does a really good job of that atmosphere, that world building, just transporting you to a different place and giving you a different sort of sense of reality, at least until the CD stops and you have to go back to work.
All right. Well, I had a Norwegian metal pick, so we're going to go to a non-metal release. I haven't listened to this one in a while, but this is good escapism music as well. Endura Black Eden. This is like a dark ambient record, but a little more musical. There's 2 songs, The Devil's Stars Burn Cold and When God Was a Snake. They're very stripped down, simplistic, pseudo-industrial like songs, plotting, very ritualistic, hypnotic, and it's stuff hypnotic, repetitious. It gets you in a trance, and again, you start to your brain starts to go into different places. But these guys put out a shit ton of records. I've only got 2 of them. This one is a very good dark ambient record. I tend to gravitate more towards dark ambient than noise. Noise has its place, but I prefer essentially black metal minus the metal, and that's kind of what this is. But I would check out Endura Black Eden, The Devil's Stars Burn Cold, and When God Was a Snake. Those 2 songs are exceptional tracks on this record, and it's an EP, I guess. It's not very long, but very good. Takes you out of your head for a while for sure. Jimmy.
Well, speaking of dungeon synth, I figured I'd pull one. And
I've got one too coming up.
Yeah. And I hate to kind of because I just talked about this band in my last hiking video, but I just feel like I need to reemphasize how great this is. Old Sorcery with Dragon Citadel LDs. And I learned about this. I see Mark Riddicks in the chat. He was on that stream with Ken and Phantom Slaughter from the band Worm. And Phantom Slaughter picked this as one of his favorites of the year and talked about how what grabbed him about this is there was a song on here that reminded him of some of the goblin music from the movie Suspiria. And I love that movie and I love that soundtrack. And I was like, oh, I got to check this band out. And Dungeons and Sith, again, I've talked about this in my stuff, but it's hard to you got to weed through a lot of stuff to find the good shit. You know what I mean? It's a whole world of albums that you can go through. I mean, you could just go forever and looking at all the Dungeons and Sith projects out there. But I feel out of all the stuff that I'm kind of the casual Dungeons and fan, and I look for the best stuff for sure because I just wanted, it's nice, good stuff to listen to when I'm working. I don't have to pay attention to it too much. Yep. Which agreed, John. This is really, really struck me when I listened to it because it was like, man, this is a lot more well developed and well produced and just composed Dungeon Synth compared to some of the other stuff that I hear.
You're right. I've got an earlier one or a later one. I don't know. Is that the new one?
This is the newest one.
Okay, I've got the one maybe before it. It's exceptional. It's really well composed.
Oh, the one before this is great. Strange and Eternal. Man, get this one though, dude. This one's even better. It's varied. It's just man, it's a fine piece of Dungeon Synth.
Yeah.
If you're into the genre, there's a lot of good bands for sure. Old Sorcery. All the out of season. There's some good stuff there. Sequester Keep and things like that. But I think that this really, really stands out in the Dungeons and just really cool sounds, varies, and kind of like a soundtrack in a lot of ways. Very good stuff.
Good pick. Absolutely. Alan.
All right. Once again, going kind of a different direction. If you'd asked me right off the bat, would this be a great example for escapism? My knee-jerk reaction would have been no, but when I stopped and thought about it for a minute, it's just like, actually, it probably is. Any of the classic Dio albums from the 80s, obviously, very talented vocalist, a fan favorite, pretty much far and wide across heavy metal spectra. But, besides just, being a very good vocalist and tied to, some very big name projects, like Black Sabbath, Dio's music always had, this very fantastical element to it, but he also always made it very relevant to people. For all the sword and sorcery imagery that he sang about, you also always felt like, the songs were very personal, connected, to individual people very well. So I think it's one reason so many people loved him so much, and, were so affected, by his music and, ultimately by his passing. That these songs really spoke to people in terms of giving them hope, in terms of giving them dreams, in terms of giving them inspiration to, see things through and, not give up on themselves or, their aspirations. But yeah, and again, he did it, in a very clever way. It has, this, thin coating of, typical, dragon, crystal ball, kind of, fantasy veneer. But there's no mistaking the messaging that's done with it too. So it gave people a way to sort of lift their countenance and look up and see the world. Was like wait, I can do this. I can make it. I can succeed. I don't have to listen to all the naysayers and get dragged down by all the day-to-day drudgery and crap that I have to deal with. So yeah, Dio, I think, was escapism for a lot of people. That it really helped get them to that next level and break away from just the everyday mundane things. So I'm picking Dio. Why did I pick Sacred Heart? Because it's a better album than it gets credit for, and still has a lot of good songs that fit the bill here quite well, and as well as the cover art fits into the whole fantasy and escapism thing too. What's this dragon doing? He's a very happy looking dragon. Is he trying to escape? Is he trying to see if he's got broccoli stuck in his teeth? I don't know. But I can dig it. And it's a cool album. And yeah, I'm putting Dio on my list of cool things to escape to.
And it's his last truly great record. And Laps 9 Continuum here says Dio and Rainbow had a huge hand in originally putting fantasy and escapism in metal. Agreed. I mean, that's
a good point, Laps. Yep.
Great point. Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Me. Okay. I've showed this record so many times on this channel, and I still think it's an overlooked classic. Thankfully, Nuclear War Now is reissuing this one and the album that came out after it soon. But Hades Again Shall Be.
Nice.
The opening instrumental intro, Pagan Triumph, it just perfectly sizes up this album, the sound. Very huge riffs. There's a definite Bathory element going on here. Hammerheart era, but with a Norwegian spin on it. And of course, the vocals are just scathing black metal vocals, but this is a classic. I love this record. I like the one after it a lot as well. I've got all their stuff. Some of it's better than others, but these first two and the demo as well. I hate to be that guy. The demo's better, but a lot of the demo tracks are on this record. But absolutely classic Norwegian black metal before they had to change their name to Hades Almighty because of the US Hades, the power metal band, heavy metal band made them change the name. But yep, if you've not heard this, get it. Yeah, thank you, Nuclear War Now. You're exactly right, Samantha. I can't wait to finally get a good copy of that. Put it on mark. It is awesome escapism. It's so good. So good. Jimmy.
Yeah, I've somehow missed out on that one too. I remember you talking about that a while back, Marty, and I need to check that one out.
It's coming. Like I said, it's Nuclear War Now is putting.
Yeah, if they're repressing it,
Yeah.
I'll just pick it up.
In the repress, I'll have the demo on it as well, so it'll be good.
Yeah. Next up, man, this is a record that it's fairly recent, and it came out. A lot of people liked it, and then it just kind of got dropped, and hadn't heard anybody talk about it, and for a good reason, because these guys decided to disappear after this. But this is Cosmic Church with the Ulysses, and this is Finnish black metal, and I think they had like 4 records. Don't really know anything about the artist. I think it's just one guy. Just atmospheric black metal, fantastical, kind of in the same realm as some of the last albums that I definitely would put this aside. Blut Aus Nord's Dialogue with the Stars, in terms of just the sort of heights that they get to with this just otherworldly music. It's very, very but it's accessible. It's easy to listen to for black metal, and it's interesting how the vocals do exactly what I want black metal to do. They, it's got a, you would never understand what the hell the guy's saying, but it's just complete. It's like a spirit, like it looks right here, just existing in the background of these amazing layers of melody and just fierce black metal. But very much woodland, very much of Finnish style, being from Finland. And I don't know, man, it's just, he did this one. A lot of people were hyping it up, and then he came out and said this is the last Cosmic Church record, and that was it. I think this was like 2018 or 19, something like that. But I don't want people to forget about it, because fuck, this is so good, so goddamn good.
It is good.
And it just it's not like these days when there's a dime a dozen atmospheric black metal bands, but this one stands out because it doesn't. It deviates. It goes. It takes you somewhere. Like the riffs, and it's not complacent that a lot of atmospheric black metal can do these days, where it just kind of sticks in one area. This is not meat and potato stuff, man. This is very much spiritual and very in tune with the natural world and whatever sort of mysticism that this guy's into. And sure, that photo session was a lot of fun. Those fog, those fog machines. Like, I wonder if they just put a bunch of branches around him, and or if that's truly in the Finnish forest. I don't know. I like to think that really happened, but great record, man. Don't forget about these guys, and maybe they'll come back. I don't know. I'd like to see.
It's a bitch carrying that generator out into the Finnish forest. I'll tell you.
Right.
You have a generator to kick off the smoke machine.
Yeah. So that's why this is real for sure. This really happened.
I can see it being a pain to do, like in a trying to set up in a studio or something too. It's like no wait, we need more fog.
Yeah.
No. Now we need more fog. Shit. Now the fog's too thick, and we got to wait 20 minutes. Turn on the fans and suck us. Now there's not enough fog again.
Yeah.
Right.
Trying to get the right amount of fog, on a sound.
And to get it the same color as the robe too is like a big bitch.
I asked for mauve fog, not teal. What the hell is wrong with you people? This is puce. What's wrong with you?
It's a girl baby reveal, not a boy. Baby reveal, Finnish black metal style.
Oh, of all the pop culture trends that I don't understand, that one is way, way, way up the list.
Yep.
We must announce the gender of our child with some kind of large display. Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Alan, you're up.
All right. This project's done a bunch of albums. They're kind of, similar, but definitely, kind of sweep you away. And like some of the ones that you've shown tonight, Jimmy, really make you kind of, feel like, you're in their homeland. Sayer pulled their second one, Aura. It's the only one I think I have a hard copy of, although I've downloaded most of theirs from Bandcamp. There may be one I haven't got.
Austin played drums on that.
Yes, this one features Austin Lawn from Panopticon doing the drums, and it definitely was a helped this album a lot compared to the one that came before it. Also, having the more dynamic presence behind the drum kit added a lot to the songs. But yeah, he's very good, including, of course, the thing that stands out to a lot of folks, is, the use of the tin whistles and such. They kind of give you, that Scottish Highlands kind of vibe. But it sounds a little cheesy if you just say it, but it actually works quite well the way it's incorporated into the music. So yeah, definitely like it. Really good, getting the traditional instrumentation worked in, like we've talked about with a few other bands, and giving you that sense of their own history. And it seems to be something more bands from more locations are doing in recent years, which is cool to see. It's not that here's another French band singing about Vikings. Up next, we have a band from Ventura, California singing about Vikings, and after that, a band from Mexico City singing about, you guessed it, Vikings. It's like, no, the Mexican bands are singing about Mexican culture. Bands from Romania and Belarus and wherever, they're picking up on their own cultures and their own mythologies and stuff, and singing more about those, which is just kind of neat to explore in a way. You can only do so many songs about Odin, Thor, Valhalla, and Valkyries before it wears a little thin. Just saying to any of the aspiring future metal band members in the audience, you can sing about something that doesn't have the word Norse and Valhalla in it. It's okay. You can branch out and expand a little bit. Those waters have been treaded a few times. So if you're going to do it, you better do it really damn good, or you're just going to get kind of lost in that crowd. I've said my piece. I'm good now.
Right on.
Great band.
That all said, I may show a Viking thing here in a minute or two. So
yeah, me too.
I get it. It's fun, but there's
Viking
an awful lot of it.
Right on. Okay, another non-metal one. The reason why I ended up with this CD was because I was on a humongous Drowning the Light tear for a while. I have way more Drowning the Light than I need. But Asgore, the main guy from that band, did a dungeon synth project called Forgotten Kingdoms. This one is Blue Moon Gate Between Worlds. This is technically the very first dungeon synth album I ever bought. And the songwriting on here is quite good. The vibe on here is quite good. The production is quite good. It really, at the time, resonated with me quite a bit, and it kind of threw me down a dungeon synth wormhole for sure. I don't have as much dungeon synth as I probably need, but I might have enough to get me by, there's always the old sorcery. There's always standout bands in every genre. And this was one of them. I didn't like the second one as much, but this one was quite good. And it got me going in the realm, for sure. Again, very much escapism. You put this on and you're trying to figure out where the path is to get to that castle. For sure. And you're probably lost along the way as well, but good record. If you're into dungeon synth, check that out.
Turn left at Ye Old Forest.
All right, Jimmy.
Well, I figured I had to pull some sort of power metal record out since we've got a couple of things in here. And yeah, I think that power metal can be escapist as well, just in terms of mood setting, like you guys have talked about. And so, yeah, I decided to pull one that's not often talked about, and that is the debut album from Sonata Arctica, Ecliptica.
Oh,
and
nice one.
This album, God, is just an earworm from start to finish. It's every song is just great melodies. And I always wondered, how can anybody be so freaking happy, because this is just the cheesiest, happiest, just completely indulgent power metal there is. And this is kind of 1999, so pretty early stuff here. These guys were pretty young. There's a bit of fantasy in this with My Land and Eighth Commandment and Kingdom for Hearts. But man, Blank File, man. I mean, it's just right off the bat, just the guy has some pipes on him. It hits these amazingly high notes way later in the song, and just good feel good melodies, and just like, when I need something to balance out all the sad shit that I listen to, Sonata Arctica does the trick. And this one and the follow-up was equally as great.
Yep.
Man,
Yeah.
love that one. And Winterheart's Guild. After that, I kind of lost touch with them.
Agreed.
They're still around. They're still, they just released a new one recently, and I feel like I check in with them every now and then, and they just don't really quite hit me like they did with these early ones. You're into these guys, Alan?
Oh yeah, it's one of my wife's favorite bands.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm at the same boat you are. Those first three are pretty good. I like them, and after that, I feel like there definitely was sort of a drop in quality. My wife likes several more albums, but then you get to another plateau, and she kind of also is like, yeah, okay, now they're sort of losing me also. But yeah, you described them. The one on there for me, my favorite track is Full Moon, the werewolf song.
Yeah.
That one's got just a really, really insanely catchy hook to it. But yeah, very cool.
Good. Well written, just good melodies, man. Just I mean, for a debut album, this was pretty knocking it out of the park in terms of power metal. But
yeah, they kind of hit at the right time. The power metal had already kind of been ramping back up in popularity for a couple of years, and so they came along at just the right time to kind of capitalize and hit it when the genre was really starting. It had already gained momentum. They didn't have to slog through the mid 90s like Stradivarius, when people in a lot of countries didn't pay attention to what they were doing. But the one thing with that band that it's a little unintentionally hilarious sometimes, their grasp of English is not quite as solid as a lot of other power metal bands from Europe. So you sometimes get some unintentionally hilarious lyrics written in some of their songs.
Oh yeah, so funny.
Yeah, there's lines about underwear and stuff. And a couple of the songs you're just like, okay, should have had someone sit down and help you through that particular verse, but it's all good.
Yeah, even the second album had some funny stuff in there. With the break of the internet at the time, and some of the terminology they used for it was funny. But man, Replica, Logan, Replica, it's such a good song.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, Alan.
All right, which one do I want to show next? Let's do this one. This has been kind of a popular band and a fairly popular style in recent years. And again, it doesn't immediately scream escapism, but when you stop and think about it, I think it does fit the bill. For this one, I pulled Deathhammer, but pulled them to kind of represent, the surge in popularity of, this sort of, blackened thrash metal.
They're such a good band, dude. That band rules. They really are good.
Deathhammer does it well. There's a lot of bands that have been doing it well in recent years. Demiser is cool for this. Butcher is cool for this. Personally, I like Bewitcher. I know some folks do, some folks don't, but I think they're very good in that style too. The reason I've picked them now, this again doesn't seem that escapist because it's pretty straightforward, simple music. You know what you're going to get a bunch of catchy riffs, and you're going to get a whole lot of references, to Satan and beer and metal and beer and Satan and metal and Satan and beer. But I think for a lot of folks, this is, again, it's one of those turn back the clock kind of phenomena that you can put something like this on. It's immediately going to grab your attention, perk you up. And yes, it's just like, this is, good time, fun music, going out, goofing off, hanging out with your buddies, maybe drinking a little too much, maybe getting in a little bit of trouble somehow, but nothing serious. We're talking misdemeanors here. Not trying to bring anyone down. But yeah, it's the kind of thing people put on, be like, hell yes, that reminds me of good times. That reminds me of going out and headbanging and going to shows and concerts and just, having a wild time, which is, helps you escape, because let's face it, for most people, their day-to-day lives, it's not wild. It's sitting at a desk. It's staring at a computer. It's filling out paperwork. It's, dropping the kids off at school. It's, going to the grocery store to buy hemorrhoid cream and tampons. It's, it's, these kind of, it's the mundane things that you got to do. It's, it's your basic existence. But you put this on, it's just like, okay, now I can get away from that, for 33 minutes and, 10 songs. I can just sort of, forget about the grocery list. And, Johnny will be fine if I'm, 20 minutes late, picking him up after band practice, whatever. I can just zone out and, have, that, little bit of fun time where it's very simple. It's black and white. You don't have to think about it. All you have to do is crank it up loud, play the air guitar, bang your head, drum on the steering wheel, whatever your groove is, you can do it. I think it's one of the reasons this style has been very popular in recent years. It's a needed escape valve for people who don't always get a chance to get out and get it. Even forget pandemic restrictions and lockdowns and that kind of stuff aside. You get into the adult years and the adult responsibilities, and you're not going out every weekend partying it up and living wild and crazy anymore. And sometimes you just need a small dose of that to kind of remember and help get you through unloading the dishwasher and then unloading the dryer and then vacuuming the floor and then cleaning up the kitty barf all over the rug while you were doing all the other chores. Sometimes it's fun to just have fun and listen to fun music.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
It's like a Norwegian destruction. That's some of the stuff. It sounds like if Eternal Devastation was turned up in the speed a little bit, and it's great. Good stuff. Fun band.
Fun style of music. Even though the bands can maybe be a little samey at times, it's a lot. There's a lot of fun stuff in that genre.
Right on. Well, I guess these guys put out a new album this week or last week. And this is my favorite by them. Eld by Enslaved.
Oh.
793, The Battle of Lindisfarne. Ugh. They out Bathory on that track. I just love how it sets the scene for this record to unfold. I love this guy, Harold Helgeson was the only drummer, the only time he played in Enslaved, and the drum production is really punchy and out front. I really like it. I think he's a great drummer. I really enjoy the sound of this record. Again, it's escapism into the Norwegian woodlands, but the Viking element, they really laid pretty heavily into it on here. Obviously, Grudela is all decked out in his period piece garb, which is cool. Thankfully, Ivar got rid of the gimp mask. That was always a questionable choice. But I love this record. This one, Below the Lights, and Isa are probably my three favorite Enslaved records. I do like Viking Ligger Veldi as well. But yep, this is the one I usually grab when I want to listen to Enslaved. I just love that first track. It takes me back in time. I'm on a Viking ship getting seasick with the rest of them. Awesome stuff.
Yeah, it was definitely a different record for them at the time, with Trim leaving the band, and that drummer, man, he was only in that album, but man, he was great on it.
He was great. I love the weird plunky production of the drums of it too. It's just really out there and awesome. A lot of punch. Really good. All right, Jimmy.
So this is a fairly new band, and I talked about this band a bit on my channel, but I wanted to highlight them a bit more just because I feel so strongly about them. And this is a band from Vancouver called Vital Spirit. And if you've watched my channel, I've talked a little bit, but I just wanted to highlight because this is a fine piece of Americana. And this is history, and that's the escapism here. And these guys, if you read the liner notes, the music is very much, if you're into Wayfarer, bands like that, just like Americana black metal. These guys, I think they're better than Wayfarer, another great band, of course, but just kind of one that's a little bit more unknown. But these guys really wear their concept on their sleeves, and especially if you read the liner notes, these guys are well read. I love reading American history. That's one of my favorite things in terms of books and especially about Western conquest in the 1800s, and that time is very, very romantic to me, and crazy and violent and insane. Just complete, not that long ago, but still a completely different world than it is today. And Wade, the name of the band is Vital Spirit. They're from Vancouver. And yeah, this just came out last year, first record. What a fine effort for a first record. Every song is good. There's no filler on this thing. I mean, it's just great black metal riffs. The music sounds Western. It sounds Americana, kind of like Wayfarer does. And like I said, I mean, in terms of the concept, I mean, these guys cite authors such as Cormac McCarthy, who wrote No Country for Old Men, The Road, Blood Meridian. Another great author that they cite is Hampton Sides, who wrote a book called Blood and Thunder, a fantastic, amazing piece of Western Americana literature that I highly recommend if that's your thing. It's all about the life of Kit Carson and you know, the conquest of New Mexico and California, and the taking of the Navajo Nation, and just the awful you know, conflict and the way that we just did not understand each other, the peoples in that time. And just, you know, I think this is really a soundtrack to that book, The Blood and Thunder. They also cite an author named S.E. Gwynn, who wrote a book called Empire of the Summer Moon, which is all about the Comanches, history of Texas, and, you know, the history of Indian Native Americans and horsemanship. And it's just amazing read. But this, I was really just chuffed when I got the liner notes for this, and really I read all those books, and I was like, man, this is right there. The music very much sounds like that. It very much epitomizes it. It's not, you know, and the fact that these guys are from Vancouver, they're not, you know, American or, you know, from the United States, but a very fine piece of black metal that I highly recommend if you're into Wayfarer. Check this out. Kind of went under the radar. I would expect big things from these guys coming forward.
Right on. Alan.
All right. Let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny. Yeah, let's do this one. I haven't talked about them tonight. Another band that, you know, sets the atmosphere on 11 and just really draws you in every single time. The Chasm. I picked this one simply because I don't get to pick this one a lot of the times. It's neither my favorite nor least favorite, but you know, very cool. They always do such a good job of, you know, just conjuring this very dark, weird, mystical world. It's not an evil world. It's not a satanic world. It's not a happy world. It's dark and mysterious. And so you can kind of, you know, let your imagination fill in a lot of the blanks a lot of the time. You know, but yeah, with, you know, the artwork is always fierce, the song titles, the album covers, it's, you know, a really good package of it all together. Gotta say, you know, I do like the old school logo on
Me too.
the first couple albums too.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with the later logo, but this one's yeah, I always like that one. So yeah, and they always kind of, you know, have their own vibe. There's not a lot of other bands that, you know, kind of mine the same sonic part of the, you know, this underground that the Chasm do. Just really cool stuff. At the same time, you know, while I guess the other thing worth pointing out for folks that aren't familiar with them, they can appeal to folks when you just want this sort of, you know, cavernous knuckle dragging vibe in death metal, but they also have a lot going on in the music. So they can also appeal to folks, you know, that, you know, are more progressive minded and are wanting something that's a little bit more of a unique experience and that you can pick apart and find, you know, all these different little, you know, hidden, you know, nuggets and gems within too. It's funny how they managed to do that. You know, it's like the most least progressive death metal band ever somehow. I don't know if they're a progressive band hiding as, you know, like a more brutal band, or if they're a brutal band that's, you know, sort of hiding behind you a progressive curtain, but they get both parts of it done really well. So Chasm definitely has, you know, an atmosphere that you can escape into every time.
And it's I always thought they're very unique. I mean, they just have a really dark, kind of twisted South American style. It kind of rules, and one of the best bands I've ever seen live. They're amazing. I've seen them 5 times, and Daniel several times when he was singing for Incantation. But man, good, great band.
New record's great too.
Yeah, and Mark was pointing that out in the comments here too. Yeah, you know, they had another album come out last year to the surprise and delight of fans, and it's really good.
I'm glad Daniel's singing again. Yeah.
Yes. It's nice to have him, you know, back at full force behind the mic.
All right. Well, this is my last one. That doesn't mean y'all got to stop. I'm just saying this is all I picked.
That's
And
fine.
I
It's
saved
about
one
that time.
of the big one for last. In the Night Side Eclipse.
Mhm.
Mixing straight up cult black metal with pure symphonic majesty. This album is amazing. I mean, it's a toss up for me between Nightside and Anthems. I think they're both amazing. I think Anthems is starting to get a little bit more proggy, but I still love it. This one here is just it walks the perfect line between the cult nature of their demo and a more symphonic nod. But again, I am in this landscape looking out over the the moonlit penis tower there. I love this record. I love it. It's absolute classic, and it takes me away every time I put it on. Never gets old, never gets boring. I wish they would have stayed in this style. Another record, at least one more record.
At least one more.
I mean, Anthems is amazing. Don't get me wrong. But after Anthems, they started to go into places I didn't want to follow them so much. But yep.
You mean like the ladies' room? Because my dad walked in the ladies' room once by mistake, and I didn't want to follow him.
That's not a bad place to go.
I just stood outside, and when he came out, everybody was laughing at him. So yeah,
right on.
Kind of an embarrassing trip to the mall.
Yes, I'm sorry, sir. You have to leave. Yes. But yep. And Jimmy, you're back.
Yeah, I got a couple more, but this is one I just wanted to. There's one more that I could probably end on, but this one, is another band that I feel like kind of just. I don't think they get slept on. I just don't see them talked about enough. And so let's go to Germany. And this is another atmospheric black metal band called Imperium Decadence.
Ah, they're good. Yeah, good band.
Very, very good band. And so this is their second. They just released a new record. I've got it. I just haven't really absorbed it yet. But this was the last one. I think probably one of the strongest ones that they've done. And it's I guess I haven't even really heard, I think they've got 6 or 7 records. So they were on Season of Mist for a while. Now they're on Napalm Records. This is their first Napalm Records effort. But I think what I get from this is, in terms of every time, when you listen to atmospheric black metal, it's either about, especially a band from Germany that, you expect to listen to it and see their mountains or see their landscapes, or these guys do something a little bit different for me. And they're very, very moody, and they are like black metal, but a lot of it is a lot more stripped down in terms of they're not just like blast beat central. It's very more slower, kind of dirgy black metal, if there's such a thing. And very, it can be, it's hard. It's very hard. It's to try to do something that's somber, but at the same time uplifting. And I think that these guys do that with their melodies. And oftentimes their songs get me to sort of When We Are Forgotten, and that's the name of the album. And a lot of these songs, let's see, Frozen in Time, My Solace, A Cave Called Wisdom. They just get you to sort of contemplate your place, where you're at in the moment in your life, if that makes any sense. There's a great video of one of the songs on here where it just shows the 2 members of the band sort of on a beach, and there's a fire going, and they're just looking off into the sea, and it slowly shows them sort of drift off into the distance. And I know it's kind of a nice visual metaphor for what the music is. This is where is your place in the moment? And it's a very just effective way of doing the type of black metal that they do, because oftentimes you can be just trying to capture that nature. If you're going to do that sort of thing, you really have to sell it, and I don't think these guys are trying to do that. I think they're doing something that's very honest in the music. So but very, very good band. Looking forward to delve into the new one. But 2-piece, and German black metal, Imperium Decadence. Weird name, but very cool.
Good band.
Cool. Don't know that one.
Alan.
Let's see. There's a couple of things I could have picked for this, but want to go with Slough Feg's Traveler album.
Oh, such a good record. Oh my God.
Yeah, and this kind of plays into escapism on a couple of veins. One, they're doing their own storytelling as a concept album, and it's this big space opera fantasy. So all of that clicks the right buttons for escapism. But it's also all based on an old late 70s and early 80s role-playing game. Traveler was the name of a role-playing system. It was basically the space fantasy version of Dungeons and Dragons. It's just that one of them caught on and became a cultural icon, and the other one didn't. But yeah, so you also those kind of games, that's also just pure escapism. Turning yourself into a 7th level dwarf paladin with a +3 elf killing knife and all this kind of stuff going off on your quests and adventures around the table. And then you have a band that takes that whole experience and sets it to music as well. So, Slough Feg, very talented, very imaginative and creative band. And so, yeah, you can really feel like you're along for the ride here. You very much feel like you're one of these, asteroid miners trying to, duck through the belts and avoid the Vargers and all this kind of stuff when you listen to an album like this. Always, it's funny. You can say other power metal bands and stuff maybe sometimes try to do similar stuff, making concept albums about, castles and dragons. And a lot of those come out very cookie cutter, very generic. They're not that interesting. But, when bands, again, really dig into the source material, like we talked about with Summoning earlier, it can work out really, really well. Bolt Thrower did a great job with the Warhammer 40K universe on their Games Workshop related albums back in the day, too. So, yeah, heavy metal nerddom and, role-playing game nerddom, and you squish them together just right, and you escaping for a while. You definitely escaping.
Well, that Traveler record is a perfect riff album. That album is so well written. It is so unique, so good. It's like a culmination of two perfect albums that came before it too. So I mean, it's a good run. I mean, they put out a lot of great classic, unique albums, but that one very special. Great record.
Yeah, the songs hold up well individually, and they fit together well as a concept as well, which is usually the sign of the better storytelling albums.
Oh yeah. All right, Jimmy.
Sorry, had to get the mouse. So I've got one more, and I think maybe this is a fitting one to end on. And I could have easily grabbed for a lot of Cynic records. It's my favorite band of all time, probably. And, so I tried to deviate a little bit from that. But, interestingly, we got through more than what I've had here. I could easily go pick out more out of the collection that would, classify as escapist for me.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's a testament to this whole subject is that, and there's a lot you can draw from. And, I mean, like, even if any of these genres, you can talk about Iron Maiden and you're talking escapist. You can talk about Metallica if you wanted to, and you can find something escapist in there. Anything in these albums, I think that you can find that. And I try to really, really reach deep on my picks tonight, and just find the ones that really just kind of project me out. In that sense, sort of out of body experience in a way. So, and I think this record does this for me. And I've tried to, like, especially with the bands that, like, I sort of went for the ones that weren't the albums of those bands that weren't as much liked, that I usually end up liking. And that is especially so for this record. And that would be the Cynic's Portal tapes. This isn't actually Cynic. This is Portal, which was the name of the project. And they released this after Cynic broke up in 1996 or whatever it was. And they fell off the face of the they were not continuing as an entity. They were shunned as a metal band pretty much. Even though they had their audience, I think at the time they ultimately found their audience later on. But they went on to do this album Portal, which was completely farly removed from metal. It's just like an atmospheric rock, space rock kind of album, and a lot of people don't like it at all. Just didn't fit the bill. I think for me, I don't know if it was like took time because it's been around for so long. That's for me to find my own enjoyment in the record. But I mean, this really ranks up for me and one of my most favorite things Cynic has done. I love the female vocalist on this. I forget her name, but she absolutely shines. It's absolutely ethereal, just out of body sort of mood to the record. Beautiful melodies, just very restrained playing in terms of the band. But I mean, this is Masvidal and Reinertz, and I don't think Malone was on here, but I think they had Chris Kringle, who later on came back with Cynic.
Chris Kringle, did you say Santa's on Santa? The Santa's on that album?
Pretty sure his name was Chris Kringle.
That's pretty
Somebody
awesome.
in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that's his name.
Santa moonlighting in a proggy rock band. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Or maybe it's Chris Kringle. I don't know. I know.
Either way, it's still Santa.
I'm pretty sure
incognito.
his name is Chris Kringle. Man, I'm not going to open it up to look it up. Let's go look it up later. But anyway, man, I fucking love this album. There have been many times like where I've been, you asked me about you don't just go out, in the middle of the wilderness by yourself overnight. There's been times I've had some nights where I was a little unsettled, and
You're right.
Kringle,
not having Kringel, Chris Kringle.
So I was right, huh?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
There you go. He's a great bass player. I mean, he actually came back to the band when they reunited before Malone came back. But as I was saying, there have been nights where I was out alone by myself in places where I was a little unsettled and not having a great time, and trying to get used to what I was trying to do. And I'd put this on, and this would immediately put me at ease and just calm me. And it's like putting a baby at rest or something. That's what this does to me. And I love this record so much, and I've listened to it so many times, and it never gets old, and it does what I want it to do, and it just has a calming effect that I often just need when it comes to listening to all the crazy shit that we listen to. And then you just, at the end of the day, you put this Portal record on and just let it lull you to sleep in a good mood in scary places sometimes. So I'll end it with that.
You're right. It's not actually a Cynic album, Laps. They put Cynic on it to sell more records.
Right. So this was a pressing that Season of Mist did, way after the fact, and they put the Cynic name on it. And for all intents and purposes, I mean, it's the Cynic guys, but this was not Cynic. It was called Portal. It was, before the death metal band Portal. This was, 94, 95 when they did it. Nobody gave a shit about it. It disappeared into the ether, and then it came back when Cynic came back. And, I don't know that anybody even really dug it, even in its resurgence, but I don't know. I do.
And that's the only thing they put out. It was a demo.
And that's what it is,
There are 5 reviews on Metal Archives, and the average ranking is 38%.
Yeah, not surprising. Not surprising. It's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Right on. That website says, Innocence is No Excuse is 20% higher than Power and the Glory on the Saxon page. So they can fuck right off.
There you go.
Different strokes for different fucks, whatever.
Exactly. All right, Alan.
All right. I had 3 left on the stack, but I'll just go through them quickly. They don't require any in-depth analysis. I was going to show this one earlier, but then Jimmy showed Sonata Arctica, and I figured if we showed them these 2 things back to back, we might all end up with diabetes or something. Avantasia, not everybody's cup of tea whatsoever, but
I dig them.
I dig a lot of their stuff, and yes, it's Disney metal, and the whole point of Disney is escape. It's fairy tales. And you just get lost in the classic stories for a while, and especially the way Tobis does it with bringing in all the high caliber guest vocalists to do different characters, different duets for different songs.
Best singers really ever. How can it suck? How can it suck?
It just really works quite well in that regard. So yes, Avantasia, it can be silly, it can be cheesy looking, but it's definitely takes you and lets you escape. I promised at least one Viking metal thing to kind of balance out my anti-Viking metal rant from earlier. Mythotin's always my go-to for Viking metal. These guys I thought did it a bit better and more interesting than some others. And yeah, yes, I get it. You go back to hear the tales of heroics and braveries, from a time long ago when men lived by the sword and ate red meat and drank, flagons of ale. And yeah, as opposed to today when you drive a Civic and you're drinking flat Dr. Pepper from a Burger King cup.
You eat lots of meat because you're on keto and you drink lots of ale.
Yeah, you're rushing across town, to pick up a broken appliance or something, before Susie's ballet lessons are done, because then you got to get Tommy to soccer practice before 4:30 because the coach has already yelled at you, and you got to pick up grape flavored soda for it, but you also have to have bottled water because there's that one kid who refuses to have sugar. Sometimes use the sword, chop things down, and just fucking love it. So I do get the Viking appeal for sure. And the last one I had as sort of a backup, if there's a surefire way to turn off your brain and just have loads and loads of metal fun, hail and kill, motherfuckers. Hail and kill. Man, it is the professional wrestling of heavy metal. As long as you remember to turn your brain back on when the album's over, you can have so much fun listening to any classic Manowar stuff. Absolutely. Nothing about this has any bearing on reality. And unfortunately, there's like 17% of the population that still thinks professional wrestling is real. And it's the saving 17% that, want to, actually try to, live their life following the code of the warrior spelled out, in Manowar records. It's fun. It's great. It's escapism. But if you escape and you never come back to reality, it's not escapism anymore. That's just crazy shit. The album does have to come to an end. And eventually you do just have to go vacuum the floor and take the dog for a walk so it can leak on the neighbor's mailbox. And you can't escape forever. That's part of what makes escaping fun, is that you get it in small doses and it's there waiting for you next time when you need another escape. And much like escapes have to end, so does tonight's episode. And I think
at least you know that, Alan, because a lot of people don't come back from that one.
Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't.
Jimmy, we had a great time.
Fun.
Awesome topic for sure.
It really has been. I mean, folks in the chat have really been oohing and eyeing and having a great time seeing these and mentioning others. This topic really resonated with a lot of folks tonight, Jimmy. So excellent job picking that.
I'm glad.
And this won't be the last time you see Jimmy either. We'll be getting him back. And I felt bad when he reached out to me. I'm like, actually, you've been on my list. It's just one of those things that just never got around to asking. Are you even on Facebook?
No.
That's why, because I'm not used to Instagram and Facebook. I always look at my list of people I talk to, in the chat and the messenger, and you don't come up, and I forget. But anyway, I felt bad, but we made it right. And glad to have you on. You're going to be on again. Folks, it's been great having everybody tonight. It was a great turnout. Very active, rowdy bunch in the chat tonight. Awesome. Thank you for the super chats. There might be a review coming this weekend for the new Lamp of Murmur album done by Brain Smasher for Heavy Metallurgy. Cool. I'm hoping to get it edited tonight or tomorrow. We'll see. And there'll be another one coming Monday. So lots of fun stuff coming along. And if you have not been watching the album reviews, please check them out. And also we do a Wednesday weekly album club review, which is also a lot of fun. That's starting to grow a little bit more. Thank you all. And please subscribe. It helps support the channel. Jimmy, did you have anything to add? Oh, go check out Future Ruins. Link is in the description. He has a great, fun channel, a little bit different. There's some other dudes as well that are doing hiking type of videos, but I love what Jimmy's doing. It's awesome, killer shit. What's been going on with you? What's coming up? Anything to talk about?
Yeah, I've got some big plans. I'm really going to try and step it up, and I've got some ambitious hikes planned, but I could tease 3 things. I'm going to be in Scotland in April.
Wow.
And I'm going to try and hopefully do some sort of vlog, some sort of hike. I mean, I'm going to be with family, so I'm kind of restricted on what I can do. But definitely going to try and do something out of there and tie in a bit of the Scottish band's history into that. This summer, I'm really going to do my best to bring you a big mountain peak. Which is I've got a few left that I'm dusting off here in Colorado. So I'm really going to, I've got a 22-mile big peak planned that's going to take me 3 days. I hope to film it. It's going to be very, very difficult, but I'm pretty committed to the idea. So look out for that. If not that, at least some peaks. The biggest thing is going to be later in the year in September. I'm going to be going down to the Comanche National Grasslands, which is in southeast Colorado. And there is a canyon down there. It's very remote, and it has the largest dinosaur trackway in North America. And I've been there before. I plan to shoot the video there. And also in September, there's an event that happens there in the natural world. It's called the Great Tarantula Migration. And it's when all the males.
Who wants to go see that? What?
Well, let me explain it to you. So the males,
you can stop.
So hear me out.
No, go ahead.
The males, they're not actually migrating. They're just the males are out looking for mates, and
kill them all with fire.
Well, let me tell you, partial to what you think, if you go and observe these creatures, they're extremely docile. They do not. They pose no threat whatsoever. They're beautiful to watch. And think about this. Tarantulas and dinosaur tracks. Come on. I mean,
dinosaur. You had me at dinosaur tracks, and now if there's anything,
you got tarantulas crawling around. I mean, come on, that's metal as fuck. So I mean, look, my wife has been out there the last time, and she sat there right next to one and watched them, and they're completely docile, completely kind. They're not venom. They're not poisonous. They're fun to watch, and I think that will be make for a very cool hiking video. But I digress. Yeah, man, I'm just going to try and bring some. Really just make these engaging videos as best I can. So thank you guys very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it was a pleasure. And
glad to do it, even though Marty is currently looking up, Pat O'Brien on Facebook to see if he can borrow a flamethrower to take out the tarantula.
The Neanderthals created fire for a reason. That's all I gotta say.
I'll stomp on a few for you, bro. So,
right on.
If they get aggressive.
So Jimmy, it occurred to me, if people tell you to take a hike, that's actually like a positive thing for you, right?
I take it literally. I'm like, all right. I wish my employer would say that.
Yeah, it's like, gee, thanks. I think I will. Okay. Yeah. That's cool. That actually works out in your favor.
I'd tell him I won't come back. So.
Yep.
Good.
Human falafel, spiders and snakes. Nah, homie, don't play that.
I'm gonna convince Marty that tarantulas are nice, docile creatures.
You should send him a box full of them in the mail.
Oh,
let him get used to them.
I would. The problem is they'll die by the time they get there. So.
Oh no. Well, right on. It was awesome, fun episode. Thank you so much, Jimmy, and thank you, everyone. Alan, do you have anything to add before
we're flame throwing tarantulas in the mail right now? There's nothing I can add to make this any more glorious.
Yeah, it gives a new definition to the VCLT package. So TCLT package from Marty.
Very creepy legged tarantulas.
If spiders end up arriving at my mailbox, it is the return gift is a box full of turds. Just so you know, just saying. Anyway,
it's a nice exchange. Sure.
Perfect. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much. We will see you. Reviews are coming this weekend and Wednesday. We will be talking about an Ildra record. I can't remember. Oh, wait, Ildra. Dead Roots Stirring is Wednesday's album club, and go check out Future Ruins. Go check out Let's Talk Metal. Subscribe to Heavy Metallurgy. Subscribe to all the channels we've just mentioned, and thank you so much. We appreciate all of you. Take care. We'll see you next week.
And if you don't come back next Friday night, you'll be in trouble.
Oh, it's Friday. Okay, right on. Cool.
Just a little teaser there.
Hint, hint. Cheers, everyone.
Hint, hint.